All right, let's get it. Drive time. Thursday afternoon, 9 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. Man, it is a perfect fall day outside. It's about 80 degrees and clear and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. Nice little October Thursday for you as we are inching closer and closer to the weekend. Happy Thursday to you. Boy, do we have a jam-packed sports weekend ahead, and we have a jam-packed edition of the program this afternoon here on ESPN 700. Spence Checketts behind the mic, Porter Larson behind the glass producing the show today. And as it is, every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. We have 3 elimination games in Major League Baseball today as the wild card round will come to a close. The Dodgers, best team in baseball, I don't know that it's close, advanced last night. Right now, the Detroit Tigers lead the Cleveland Guardians 1-0. Top of the 4th, but the Guardians have 2 runs on with only 1 out. Keep you up to date on that game as we go throughout the show today. So if you don't want any spoiler alerts, keep in mind we're going to be giving you scoreboard updates here on the program today at 3 o'clock Mountain Time. So about 15 minutes from right now, the Padres and the Cubbies will do battle at Wrigley Field in Chicago for Game 3. And then 2 young arms in the Bronx tonight as the Red Sox and the Yankees will battle to advance in the wild card round at Yankee Stadium after the Yankees were able to use a Jazz Chisholm game-winning run last night. Red Sox turn to make some mental errors, loading the bases, popping up, and the Yankees were able to advance. So Major League Baseball wild card elimination games top of mind. Also top of mind is Week 5 of pro football. The injury-ridden San Francisco 49ers are at SoFi to take on the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are a healthy 8.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under is 44.5 at last check. The Niners are without their starting quarterback, Brock Purdy, once again. So Week 5 of the NFL gets going tonight. You can hear Rams-Niners on our radio station after we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. Keep in mind, we're your home of the NFL in the market. We're your home of the biggest and best both college and pro football games here in the market. That game can be seen on Amazon Prime with a official kick time of 6:15 Mountain Time. Injury-riddled quarterback situations throughout the course of pro football continue to be the storyline. The Ravens have not officially ruled Lamar Jackson out, but once again, he will not practice. Looks like Lamar is not going to play. Jaden Daniels will play for Washington. That is official, so the Commanders get their quarterback back. So we'll do some pro football in the show today. It's been a really fun start to the NFL season, with 4 weeks in the books and Week 5 getting going tonight. College football locally, kind of a quiet weekend. It's rare to turn our calendars to October and have a Saturday with 0 local teams, but that's what we're working with this weekend. BYU welcomes in West Virginia for a late tilt at Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo. BYU is dominant when they play at night, and West Virginia is bad at football, so this should provide an opportunity for BYU once again to roll and pass every test that has been put to them, as they have so far throughout the course of the season. We do have some sneaky good games, both in the Big 12 and kind of nationally with the top 25 stuff. We're still looking to learn about this conference and about the landscape of college football. Colorado will be on the road at Ammon-G Stadium to take on TCU. We've got Texas Tech taking on Houston. Houston, a much-improved offensive team, but Tech a favorite even on the road. K-State, Baylor, sneaky big one. Both those teams are 1-1 in Big 12 play. Kansas State got a get-right win a week ago. Then Iowa State will be on the road at Cincinnati. Utah and Utah State hoping to use the bye week to get right as far as the health goes. Bryson Barnes, former Utah quarterback, our buddy the pig farmer, trying to get healthy after exiting the game a week ago. And Utah with a number of injuries. None have been officially updated because that's how we roll around here. Nate Ritchie, Jackson Betty, Dallas Vakalaki, and others. So hopefully Utah can use this week to get healthy for a massive game 2 Saturdays from now at Rice-Eccles Stadium. As Arizona State, coming off back-to-back wins in Big 12 play, will invade Salt Lake City. Arizona State is also on a bye this week. So Sam Levitt and the boys will be playing Utah football coming up at 8:15. A couple of Saturdays from now here in Salt Lake City. Don't forget our pregame coverage as your official home of the Utes. We'll begin at 4:15 with Porter Larson and a cast of Ute players. Then Bill, Scott, and Sly will take care of you all night. They're probably going to be on air until about 2 a.m. So we'll get you ready for that game. We'll do some college football on the program today. A massive match in Sandy coming up on Saturday night. A lot of implications as RSL welcomes in Colorado. It is the Rocky Mountain Cup. I know, that invokes emotion. I should behave myself. Mostly RSL just needs 3 points. I think they need to beat Colorado by 2 goals to win the Rocky Mountain Cup. Diego Luna was called up to the U.S. men's national team today by Mauricio Pochettino, and kind of a sneak peek at what the U.S. men's national team World Cup roster could look like, as we are about 9 months away from the World Cup. But Diego will be there for RSL on Saturday night as the lads, and we're here for the lads, look to potentially grab all 3 at home before finishing the season with 2 tough road games, and they're probably going to have to at least get one of those to advance to the wild card round. I don't think they can get up to 7. That puts them in the postseason, but if they get up to 8, they'll host a play-in game at America First Field, so that could be fun. We had an NBA basketball game today. Did you guys even know that? The Knicks and the Sixers, a little preseason style, as training camp is open across the landscape of the NBA. Jazz game, or I should say day 3 of training camp. First preseason game for the Jazz is next week. They're going to take on Kevin Durant and the Houston Rockets. But breaking news, NBA players don't really play in the regular season, so I'm not expecting a lot of the big dogs to play in the preseason, even though the Jazz really only have one big dog, and that's Lauri Markkanen. So not a lot of NBA news as far as the start of the season goes, but training camp is here. The Mammoth will play their first preseason game coming up tonight, believe it or not, as hockey is officially here. As we talked about, the Vegas odds for playoffs released a couple of weeks ago, and Vegas believes that the Utah Mammoth will be a playoff team this year. So it is that time of year where pretty much everything is going on. We'll cover as much of it as we possibly can. Private equity is infiltrating college football. What does that mean for the Big 12, the Big 10 to market first? We'll tell you about all the details in that direction. Some new NIL guidelines have been set in place. Now they have to be passed, but we'll kind of get into some of that stuff on the show today on a Thursday. Our first guest, our buddy Kyle Bonagura, weekly visit with Kyle Bonagura, who covers college football for ESPN. He also covers soccer. We'll get Kyle's take on the U.S. men's national team roster. Mauricio Pochettino decided to call in a camp today. RSL head coach Pablo Mastroeni stops by the program today. I always enjoy catching up with Pablo. We'll do some pro football with Lindsey Rhodes, some college football with Dave Bartu, unless he's tripping on mushrooms in the woods somewhere hunting elk. It's a real thing. You never know.
We're still going to get him on if he's doing that.
If you've never listened to the Dave Bartu interview, you just never know what our guy's doing. We'll do a little sports court with our friends from Handy and Handy. And then we'll say goodnight at 6 o'clock in time for pro football. It is the Rams and the Niners at SoFi. Kyle Bonagura, Pablo Mastroeni, Lindsey Rhodes, Dave Bartu, a little sports court, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners. And that guy, Porter Larson. Happy Thursday, young man. How are you?
I'm well. Happy Thursday back at you. Yeah, I guess pretty slow in the Big 12, the local sports week. Funny enough, they scheduled this. We talked about this a little bit. They scheduled it for at least BYU. They recommended this weekend off for festivities with the church. And then, we've got a bunch of baseball to distract us conveniently otherwise. So it's nice.
Oh, that's right. It's conference weekend down in, everywhere. The world is our campus, Porter. I forgot that it's conference weekend. Thank you for the reminder.
Is that not on your radar? Come on, dude.
It's always on my radar. Look,
Get it together.
It's Thursday. I'm an in-the-moment guy. Conference doesn't start till Saturday, so I'll get there when I need to.
Okay.
So
just making sure.
It's conference weekend, and BYU's the only school that's playing.
Bad weather, also, by the way, gonna be this weekend.
We don't need the weather updates every day. Oh wait, quick update.
Yep.
As we move closer and closer to the end of the year, is it still the deal that it's going to get colder?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Snow in the mountains this weekend.
Oh man.
Probably rain down here.
It's a little too early for that. All right, Kyle Bonagura, our first guest to do some college football on this Thursday afternoon. But before we catch up with Kyle, on a Thursday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Live with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of the drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
It's pretty rare that there's a Saturday in October where we have 0 local college football games, but that's where we find ourselves today and this weekend, as the University of Utah will utilize a bye week to get right for Arizona State. We'll keep you up to date on any injury news that we have officially. But if you're new to the market, just understand that injury news does not come down very often unless it's season ending. So I suppose it's good news that we haven't heard anything. It means that, Nate Ritchie was on the sidelines in crutches and looked like he was wearing a boot. So that looked like a lower leg injury. I am not one of the radio hosts that pretends to be a doctor, so I'm not going to analyze that. It just didn't look good. Jackson Benny did go to the sidelines with what looked like an ankle injury, but did not have to go to the locker room. But I do want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. It's the best way to cash in on the Broncos, on the Niners, who play tonight, on the Raiders, whoever your favorite football team is this football season. Which players are going off, which ones are overhyped. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. If you want to pick more on Josh Allen's passing yards, his rushing yards, or his touchdowns, now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. You can follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Step number 1 is going to get their free money. If you haven't done that yet, you should definitely take advantage of this offer. If you download the Prize Picks app today, use the promo code ESPN700, you're going to get $50 in lineups. After you play that first $5 lineup, promo code ESPN700, you get $50 in lineups. After you play that first $5 lineup on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. So, University of Utah, Utah State, utilizing this week to get right. Utah State will be in Hawaii. I think that's a 10 o'clock Mountain Time start next Saturday, trying to get their quarterback right as Bryson Barnes went down last weekend, and Utah trying to get right for potentially the biggest game on the slate so far this year. I said this throughout the course of the week, and I believe it to be true. Starting on Monday of this week, I perceive this to be the biggest 3 weeks of the season for Utah football. Now, of course, the troubling part, the downside is the one stern test Utah has received so far this year, they did not pass that test. Texas Tech rolled into town, and after a good 3-quarter battle, ran away from Utah in the 4th quarter with their backup quarterback. So if you're a Ute fan, the reality is you need to cheer for Texas Tech to continue to win and continue to look like the best team in the Big 12 that most people believe that they are. I don't think it's debatable that the best win so far in the conference is Texas Tech rolling into Salt Lake and handing it to the then 16-ranked Utes, 34-10. So Tech will be on the road at Houston. Their schedule is rather favorable. They get BYU at home. They do have to go to Tempe to take on Arizona State, but they're at Houston, then they're home against Kansas. There's a good chance that Tech has a good possibility to stay clean all year long. So if we operate off that hypothetical, which, of course, in college football is an exercise in futility, it is the most difficult sport to try to analyze and try to predict. There's going to be room for certainly another team with 1 loss and maybe even 2. I don't know that I'm ready to go there yet to make it into the Big 12 championship game. Now, topically, when it comes to this conference, a lot of people just hoping there's a way to get 2 teams in. The College Football Playoff Committee a year ago, I thought, spoke rather loudly about their tepid opinion, to say the least, of this conference when Arizona State was able to get in and really nobody else was close. But hopefully this year, for this conference, you can see a couple of teams in, and certainly both Utah and BYU, even though BYU has not necessarily been tested at a very high level yet, the bottom line is you do what you're supposed to do every single week, and the chips will fall where they're supposed to. And BYU so far has done what they're supposed to do every single week, even after a bit of an audacious start in Boulder. Jay Hill's defense locked in. They smothered Colorado over the final 3 quarters. And ultimately were able to escape with a win against the Buffs. Heavy favorite against West Virginia. And from a BYU standpoint, I think when it comes to Bear Bachmeier, all you're hoping to see is incremental growth and improvement week to week. And I feel like you're seeing that. I continue to repeat this stat only because if you're the only BYU quarterback to ever do something, it means you're doing something right. Several unbelievable quarterbacks, both in the modern and the old school age, have played at Brigham Young. And Bear's the only one to start a season with 10 touchdowns accounted for without turning the ball over 1 time. No turnovers for a freshman, no matter who you're playing over the first 4 weeks, has to be considered an absolute win. So what does success look like against West Virginia? Do you really care if you cover the spread? At last check, it was 18.5. The line did open up at 20.5, and it's moved a couple of different times towards West Virginia. I don't think that's really a compliment to the Mountaineers. I think it's more of a testament to how big that line is. When a line in college football is that big, there's a good chance BYU runs it up, and at halftime they're trying to put their starters on ice, and maybe West Virginia can make it interesting, but I think BYU probably rolls this weekend very easily, and then Utah will turn their attention to Arizona State. So, again, probably the biggest 3 weeks of the Utah football season after getting got by Tech, a get-right game against West Virginia, a chance to make a statement against a top 25 team and a team that a lot of people still think can win the Big 12 in Arizona State. And then you take a road trip 40 miles down south to take on your rival. So Utah will not have to leave the state for 3 full weeks. You get a bye week this week. You get a home game against Arizona State, then a quick little bus ride down to Provo to take on the Cougars. And then it's Colorado and Cincinnati at home. So actually, let me back up a little bit. Utah will not leave the state for 5 total weeks. And that has to give you confidence that we'll be able to see potentially a little bit of a winning streak if you can take care of Arizona State. BYU game is always wild unless there's an absolute talent gap, and I don't think there's a big one this year. That game typically comes down to some random circumstance or happenstance down the stretch. So, bye week for Utah, bye week for Utah State, Friday night tilt for BYU, no local college games on Saturday, which is just very, very weird. Guardians able to get one across the plate. We're deadlocked at 1 now. Detroit, Cleveland, 1 run apiece, top of the 5th as Major League Baseball wild card rolls on. We'll catch a break. We'll continue the college football conversation coming up on a Thursday with our buddy Kyle Bonagura from ESPN. Off and running, Thursday Drive. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. A very rare weekend in October where coming up on Saturday, we have 0 local college football teams in action. Utah is on a bye. Utah State is on a bye, and BYU welcomes in West Virginia to Provo on Friday night. Our next guest joins us on a weekly basis to talk college football. Mauricio Pochettino announced his roster today. Maybe we'll sneak in a little soccer. Kyle Bonagura, happy Thursday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, Spence. Now you got me wondering, like, what's Weber State up to this weekend? It's now where my head went.
I'll have our ESPN stats and info department, namely Porter, look that up. But yeah, it's weird, man. On a Saturday in October, we'll have no local college football teams playing, but we do have one playing on Friday night. Let's start with the team that BYU will be playing, namely West Virginia, and Utah dog walking them last week. Rich Rod is back. It feels like, Kyle, this is kind of like a redshirt year for him, right? They're just kind of like, okay, welcome back, get your footing. I don't know if there's anything we can really take from Utah's win over West Virginia other than it being kind of like a get-right game for the Utes, yeah?
Yeah, no, and I didn't catch much of it. I had some personal stuff going on last weekend. But, yeah, I think there was not a whole lot in the way of expectations for West Virginia this year, and then they had some key injuries like that first week too. So it went from a team that wasn't going to be very good, and then they lost their running back, lost a key receiver. So things fell apart pretty quickly for them. But yeah, Utah needed that one to build confidence back up after that showing against Tech a couple weeks ago.
I know you're a smart guy, so your brain's probably buzzing. In order for us to continue the interview, I'd like to give you an update that Weber State is also on a bye this week.
Oh what are the chances of that? Now my mind is blown. Bummer, because it's always good to experience some Big Sky football if you have the opportunity, and what a missed chance for those guys to get into the spotlight.
Indeed, unfortunate. Let's go back a couple weeks since I was off last week and I didn't have a chance to talk to you about Texas Tech rolling into town and really taking care of Utah. It was a competitive game through 3. And then, ironically enough, it was their backup quarterback that looked the part, that took Utah apart there. The latter parts of the game, 34-10 was your final. Do you feel like that's the most impressive win in the Big 12 so far this year? Texas Tech coming into Salt Lake at the time Utah was 16, and Tech pretty much ran them off the field.
Yeah, off the top of my head, that certainly is probably the most – you learn the most from it. Whether it's the most impressive, I mean, it's hard to rack my brain and kind of run through that list. But, yeah, I mean, for me, those were the two teams, and honestly probably still are the two teams that I think are the best in the conference or will ultimately be the best in the conference. And so I thought it said more about Texas Tech than anything else. And we talked about this a couple times leading into the year, Spence, is that what can – $30 million, $40 million buy you. Well, that defensive front was really, for me, that was the game, right? Utah was so thrown out of rhythm up front, and Utah has, Kyle's talked about how this offensive line kind of stacks up with among the best he's had there. And so for Texas Tech to manhandle those guys up front, get them off schedule, the blocking was all out of whack. Like, plays weren't developing. I just came away thinking, wow, Texas Tech is just really good. And I think Utah will still have a really good year, but I was impressed by those guys. And the fact that the backup quarterback came in and did what he did, kudos to those guys. So I think for me, that was, thinking about it now, is I just think Texas Tech now is clearly the best team in the conference and is should be in that playoff, no doubt.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think you really nailed it because as the story goes, the reporting from The Athletic, when they sat down with Cody Campbell, the oil tycoon that has infused that money, has infused that program with economic support, but in his own words, he was watching his alma mater and realized that there are plenty of good skill position players, historically great quarterbacks who played at Texas Tech, but they were getting manhandled up front. And I was a little bit taken back to see Utah's offensive line really have so much difficulty with that front from Texas Tech. To your point, I mean, those defensive ends, the Bailey kid, the Romolo kid, they manhandled Utah in the trenches, which is not something we typically see when it comes to a Kyle Whittingham coach team. I mean, it's Coach Witt's MO. They win up front, and they do it more often than not. But leading up to Tech Utah, I continued to use the phrase Texas Tech is trying to prove a concept while Utah has proof of concept. If Texas Tech has proven this concept, Kyle, can we be as reductive to say, like, if you're not in that economic area in the modern day and age of college football, it's just going to be difficult to keep up as strictly from a talent standpoint?
Yeah, no, I feel pretty strongly that's the case, and that's the future. I mean, you look at Oregon and Ohio State last year; they were there, right? There's a reason those, they have so many guys getting drafted. They're winning at a high level. Like it's not unique to the traditional blue bloods, right? It's whoever has the money now and how you spend that money on building a roster. So for Texas Tech, yeah, I mean they went from a team that they've always had pretty good skill guys, whether it's running backs, receivers, quarterbacks, obviously, but they were able to flip the switch overnight. It seems like in terms of how they were able to just load up front. And so, yeah, if there, I guess the question becomes like, are you able to do that year after year, right? So if it's like, let's just say for argument's sake, it's a $40 million roster, right? Whatever it is, doesn't matter, but let's just say that's the number. Are you going to have that every year, or is it like, hey, we're going to go big in 2025 and then, we kind of taper it back to 20 million the next year? And does it go in waves in terms of the investment? And like, how will that impact, the standings year after year? Because if you're spending that sort of money and it's one thing to win the Big 12 consistently year after year, but like, what are the expectations with the people that are spending that sort of money, right? If you're spending that much money, is it like, look, it's national title, appearance or bust? Like, how do you determine what success is if you're one of those money guys, or is just winning the Big 12 or competing for the Big 12 title every year good enough, right? And does the success change the level of investment? And that's not Texas Tech. I think that'll be an interesting kind of concept to look at across college football. But I think the one thing we can say for sure is like the teams that spend the most money in any given year, like it's going to pay off. Like I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, and also there will be some regulations put in place, so you can't just spend whatever you want to spend without somebody looking over your shoulder. But you got to give Texas Tech credit for taking advantage of the window when no one was really in charge and spending a bunch of money on talent. And, BYU in a way has kind of done the same thing. And Bear Bachmeier, this freshman quarterback, Kyle, whenever you're the only BYU quarterback to do something, I think it's worth pointing out. And even as a freshman, Bear has 10 touchdowns accounted for, and he has not turned the ball over. The list of BYU quarterbacks to do that to start of the season is literally zero, and they've had a couple of decent quarterbacks down there. So BYU has passed every test that's been thrown at them so far. I suppose the question is, how hard have those tests been?
Yeah, their schedule is very much backloaded, and it really couldn't have worked out better with, like you said, he's a true freshman. And I think, like, if you're evaluating a true freshman, it's like, don't screw it up, right? That's the key part. I mean, their defense is very good. That's clear. Everyone knew that coming into the year. But when you have a true freshman, it's like, all right, are you gonna be able to limit the mistakes enough to keep winning games, right? And he's done that. But again, like, the schedule really on the back end it's night and day. Like I don't have it in front of me, but I feel like their 6 most difficult opponents are the last, or they're all on the back end, right? I think it's like goes something like that. It's very skewed to the second half of the year, and so like, what does he look like against those teams? Yeah, we'll wait and see. But the fact that you did get to build up to those more difficult games, get some experience under his belt. I mean, it really couldn't have worked out better for BYU in terms of how the schedule's set up for Bear.
Yeah, and the nice thing about, and I said this when A-Rod named Bear Bachmeier the starting quarterback, I mean, it'd be one thing if Bear was entering the situation with a Bear cupboard. I didn't do that on purpose, I promise. But L.J. Martin's a really good running back. Chase Roberts is an NFL wide receiver. They lost some offensive linemen, but the O-line seems to be holding up. And Jay Hill, their defensive coordinator, who was up here coaching for Kyle for a while before taking the job at Weaver, they might have the best linebackers in the Big 12 in Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker. So as far as the talent around Bear, I do feel like he was put in a position to succeed despite his age.
And part of me thinks that's why they were comfortable going. Maybe he just was the best guy, but certainly why they were comfortable going with a true freshman right from the jump is that, like, look, there's guys around him who are going to make plays.
Yep.
The defense is going to hold up. The skill guys are there. The line, you said it. So, like, he went into – for a true freshman, you can't really envision a better scenario to start your career, like being surrounded by really talented guys with a schedule that gradually gets more difficult. If you were to draw it up, it would look a lot like this.
So we'll have you on next week, and we'll do a deep dive. And I do want to get a little take on Diego Luna making the U.S. men's national team. But Utah welcomes in Arizona State coming up next week. And Arizona State, a little bit of an auspicious start to the season. I mean, they lose in Starkville, but Mississippi State nearly beat Tennessee. Maybe they're not as bad as we thought. But back-to-back wins in Waco and then home against TCU. So what's the way too early Kyle Bonagura take on Utah, Arizona State, and Salt Lake coming up in 2 Saturdays?
Yeah, for me, they are both Tier 2 Big 12 teams right now. Like, I think Texas Tech is, for me, by itself at this point.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is what we're learning. Like, how are we leveling out the conference? You know, if you lose to Arizona State, I think that's pretty much it for reaching the Big 12 title game. You know, with the one loss already, of course. But if you win that, then you're probably feeling pretty good. I mean, then of course you got to turn around and play BYU the next week. So. For me, it's a must-win for Utah for sure. AFC's got a little bit of a leash, I guess, in terms of getting to the title game. But I don't know. I haven't watched a ton of ASU, and I know that losing Scottaboo is I think after that loss to Mississippi State, it looked like, wow, maybe he did a lot. I mean, he had so many yards from scrimmage that we knew he was great, and he's doing it in the NFL already. But we saw quickly, like, look, maybe this offense was even more reliant on him than the overwhelming stats even indicated. So I need to get in front of the TV and watch them a little bit. But I'm still putting them in that second tier.
All right, Kyle, before I set you loose, the World Cup is only about 9 months away. Mauricio Pochettino calls up his roster for these October friendlies against Ecuador and Australia. Christian Pulisic back in the fold. No surprise, Weston McKennie, the Anton Robinson kid. Diego Luna, our very own Diego Luna, has been called up as well. So your overall take on this roster, and I know I've asked you this before, but now it feels like Diego's spot might be solidified for the World Cup. Is that fair to say?
So I think what's really interesting about Diego, and I was looking at the release today where the U.S. Soccer puts out the notes and all that, and Luna's actually made more appearances than anyone else. If I read it correctly.
Oh, wow.
Has made more appearances than anyone else in the pool this year recently. Okay. I don't know what the timeline was. But, yeah, it's a clear indicator that Pochettino likes him, right? And that's ultimately what matters for making that World Cup roster. So I still think it's, like, not in stone yet, but I think that he is in – like, he certainly is an expectation for him to be out. If I were to, like, draw up the 26-man roster, what it'll look like – next summer, I would certainly put him on it. And I think we're kind of entering that territory where it becomes like, not only is he on the team, but like, what does his role look like? And I'm not ready to go all the way past that yet, because I think that we just haven't seen the U.S. team have its like full complement of players together very often over the last, this whole cycle really. And so when you do have everyone to pick from, when you're trying to pick the best team 1 to 26, maybe it looks a little bit different than like what they're trying to get out of these friendly windows, when it still feels like a lot of it is evaluation. But yeah, it's just like he remains one of the best stories in U.S. soccer.
Kyle, thank you, sir, for the time. I appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend ahead. Unfortunately, you will not be able to watch Weber State. You'll have to wait until next week, but we'll get you on next week. Thanks, bud.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, man.
All right, Kyle Bonagura covers college football and soccer for ESPN. Always appreciate his time. Get him on social media at Bonagura. ESPN is where you find him. Joined now, live in studio, by a very special guest, and I certainly have wasted his time, and he's a busy man. We are proud to be partners, I should say, with the Murdoch Auto Group. I'm driving around a beautiful G70 that I absolutely love, and Blake Murdoch live in studio. Blake, how are you, man?
So good. How are you, Spence?
It's great to see you, dude. I mean, we've known each other forever, former high school teammates, and now it's so fun to have this partnership. So let's start with 100 years. You guys as a family have been serving our community for 100 years. That's quite a milestone.
It's really pretty amazing to think about 4 generations in a family business. And As Ben and I, my brother, kind of look to the future, I think we have one main goal, and that's just not to mess things up because it's been good for a long time. And
Yeah.
That's thanks to amazing dad and uncle and grandparents. So
Sure.
it's been pretty awesome.
Well, you guys are continuing the legacy. It was very fun emceeing your golf tournament. I wish I played better golf that day, but I had a couple of good partners. How did the day end up? I mean, it felt like it was a huge success up at Valley View, one of my favorite tracks in the state.
Yeah, so first off, thanks for spending the day with us.
For sure.
It's so
Yeah.
awesome. So every year we do 2 golf tournaments. One's for our foundation where we raise funds. The second one is just customer appreciation. That's the one that we had you out at, and you were gracious enough to host and MC all the awards. But with the customer appreciation tournament, we look forward to that every year because we bring out all of our kids and grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
So typically 40, 45 young kids that host each hole and give away prizes on each hole, and that tends to be the highlight of the tournament. So
They were so impressive, man. Like, I have to say, look, I don't know how much of this is by design, but the fact that you're teaching these young kids these skills, I mean, I'm talking about 5, 6, 7-year-old boys and girls. We're driving up to the hole, and they're walking up to us and shaking our hands and introducing themselves. And, I mean, it was really fun to see, and obviously the spouses were there as well. I saw your bride and Ben and his bride as well. So certainly a highlight. Is that intentional to teach them, like, how to talk to adults at that age? It's such a great skill for them to have.
yes, I think one of the great plagues for the youth is phones and
For
social
sure,
media.
yeah.
And so any opportunity we have to get them outside, and more importantly, outside of their comfort zone, is an important opportunity for them to learn and develop those skills. So
And they seem to get along so well with each other. I mean, I'm sure there are moments, because I come from a large family as well. There are probably moments you got to pull them off each other, but they seem to really get along with each other as well.
they love each other like brothers and sisters.
That's great.
So they fight like brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
but they love each other the same. So it's pretty awesome.
All right. Actually, before we get there, I got to ask you, I don't know how many people, I'll just speak for myself. I didn't really know what the Genesis line was when you and I started talking. For background, I had driven, I won't say it, it was just a different car that I loved for a number of years. And I unfortunately was in an accident and the car was totaled. And I reached out to you and you said, well, have you ever driven a Genesis before? And I said, no, I don't know anything about it. And then you gave me some background. And I went down and I took a test drive. It felt just like the luxury sedan I had driven for 10 years, but respectfully $30,000 to $40,000 cheaper, right? And I know the background is you guys or Genesis hired somebody from BMW to kind of build this luxury brand. I have loved this G70 you have me in. Tell our listeners about it.
Yeah, so I think Genesis is such an incredible story. Obviously, they are the luxury brand over the Hyundai Kia manufacturer flagship, and Genesis is unbelievable. I think where they've really targeted the market is not just a luxury car like a Lexus, but a high-performance luxury car. And so they really kind of have that German mentality where you get the performance, but unlike the Germans, you get the most consumer-friendly tech and way advanced tech that you can actually know how to use, and it's pretty amazing. So along with the very best warranty that's available for a Highline vehicle, and the styling's unbelievable, and just everything about it is great.
Yeah, the technology is so advanced, sometimes I'm caught off guard. Like, it'll start talking to me about this, that, or whatever. It is such a smooth ride. Are you guys the only Genesis dealer in the state down in Linden?
So we have the only standalone Genesis dealership in the state of Utah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I would encourage anybody, if you're looking to buy a new car and you're looking to save some money but drive a luxury vehicle, look at the Genesis of Linden, and I would recommend the G70. The G80 is the SUV, right?
So there's the G80 is the little bit larger sedan, mid-size luxury sedan.
Okay.
And then there is an SUV lineup, which is GV60 all-electric, GV70, a little bit bigger, and then the GV80 full-size SUV. Yeah.
Okay, very nice. Well, they're great cars. I've really enjoyed it. I can't thank you enough for this partnership. But we have some news as there's a new dealership up in the motherland, B-Town, baby. We got Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram of Bountiful. Blake, tell us about it.
Yeah, we are so excited as a family to announce the acquisition of Bountiful Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram right in our hometown where we grew up, where A lot of our family still lives, and obviously our Chevy store's been there since 1982. But to be able to add those brands to our portfolio, to the lineup, and welcome some amazing team members into our family, we just actually acquired the dealership this week. So we are up and running and want to invite everybody out to see the new store.
Congratulations, man. The website is murdochcdjr.com. That's murdochcdjr.com. All right, before I set you loose, you'll sell the Ute and Cougars. Okay,
Absolutely.
You take
Love them both.
Yeah, you take care of the Utah coaching staff. Tell us about some of the partnerships. Obviously, we love partnering with you here on the station, and the partnership I have with you has been awesome. But tell us about some of the other. We're a sports talk radio show. Some of the other partnerships you have with coaches and players.
Yeah, I think we love the Whittingham family. We have really close ties with them, as I've shared on this show before, and really rooting for Kyle that this is the year for him.
Yeah.
So he can feel really good riding off into the sunset, and just love him and Freddie and their family and everything they stand for and what they've done for the U. It's just incredible. And, of course, we have deep roots at BYU. My dad played football there. My brother played basketball there. And great relationships with all of them. Our newest NIL partner, which I'm really excited about, is Kihei Akina.
Oh, cool.
And Kihei, golf phenom down at BYU, but just won an exemption at a PGA event.
Yep.
And he is on fire, and we're excited to partner with him.
That's awesome. Did you watch the Ryder Cup at all?
I caught glimpses of it, but yeah, it was sad.
It
but
was
exciting.
sad. Compelling TV, though. I mean, you and I share this passion. It's funny. I don't know if you agree with me, because you and I growing up, it was basketball, it was football, and you remember my grandfather. He was an Oak Ridge member, and he would always. My nickname was Doobie. I don't know why, but he would always say, "Doobie, we got to get a golf club in your hand." I would say, "Grandpa, it's boring." And my biggest regret when it comes to playing sports is I didn't start golfing younger, because I only started 4 or 5 years ago. Do you kind of feel the same way now that you're into it?
My biggest regret is not getting my kids started in it younger.
Ah, okay.
I love golf. I'm not that good. I don't have that much time to play yet.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that one day that will be the case. But when I look at my kids and the sports that they play, like you mentioned, football, basketball, baseball, they're all amazing. But I wish every one of my kids played golf.
Yeah. And I didn't get my boy started in it until recently either. He was basketball, soccer, and now he loves it, and he wishes he played when he was younger as well. But, hey, man, great to see you. Nothing but love and admiration for you and your family. I've loved this partnership, and anything we can do, just let us know, okay?
Likewise, Spence. You're the best.
All right, Blake,
Thank you.
Blake Murdoch, a brand-new acquisition. Very excited to announce the new Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram of Bountiful. They just acquired it this week. I am telling you, you should check out Genesis of Linden. Just Google search Genesis of Linden. Go down and check out the G70s. That's what I'm driving. It's a great car. Check out the website, murdochcdjr.com. That's murdochcdjr.com. All right, 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Pablo Mastroeni is our guest coming up on the other side on ESPN 700. The winner of Game 3 in the AL wild card will advance to take on Seattle. And right now, Detroit leads Cleveland 2-1, top of the 7th. But the Guardians have a runner on second, make that third as a sacrifice bunt. Oh, he's safe. So now they have a runner on first and third with 0 outs in the top of the 7th. We'll keep you up to date on that. Lindsey Rhodes will join us to talk some pro football. Dave Bartu for some college football. But a big one coming up in Sandy, Colorado, in town to take on RSL. Our next guest, the head coach of Real Salt Lake, good enough to give us some time on a Thursday, Pablo Mastroeni. Pobs, happy Thursday, sir. How are you?
Happy Thursday, Spence. Doing well, bud.
All right, I want to start out with a little bit of an out-of-the-box conversation. We had Jason on this week. Did you happen to watch any of the Ryder Cup last weekend?
Bits and pieces of it.
Okay. Well, I know you're a busy guy with, your job, so understandable. The conversation always fascinates me after a great result. After a great result is captured, you hear all about processes. You hear all about strategy. You hear and even like dopey things like Luke Donald changed their shampoo and their bedding, right? And so the Europeans come here, they smoke the Americans, and the conversation turns into the process they have that the Americans do not, when in reality, it came down to like 4 or 5 missed putts, right? Like winning and losing is cyclical, and the margin is so thin. So when it comes to, your job and the processes that you put into place every day, hoping that they lead to results, as a leader of a club, shed some light on this. What is the day-to-day process that you put into place in hopes that those small habits every day compound and ultimately lead to wins when it comes to games?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think you have to start big, and you think about the culture that you're trying to create. Like, what's the environment that you want to come into, whether you're a coach, a player, a staff member? What does that feel like? What are some of the necessary qualities that we're looking for, behaviors that we're looking for, right? And so there's a lot of, respect, treating people with respect, being, reliable, being honest, like these type of words that build cultures, right? And so we see that off the field in the way we conduct ourselves, the way we greet each other in the mornings, and these type of things. And then it goes on to behaviors on the field, right? And so I think it's, hard work, nothing but your maximum minimum is 100%. Like that is a necessary aspect of the way we train every single day, right? Discipline in the way we go through our work, the way we train is the way we play. And so you start seeing these mantras everywhere. And those are actionable behaviors that we want to see in our players. And I think when you have all that, then the likelihood is that you'll be able to repeat actions. You'll be able to repeat performances. But also with the understanding is that getting results is you need the refs to ref a good game. You need, the ball to hit the post and go in versus hit the post and go out. You get, in the last couple of games, right, we were up against Belonga and Sun that I felt like we played really, really good games against LAFC, but these two guys just tore us apart. And then we replicated that same performance against Austin, and then we have a really great performance and we win 3-1. So like, I think it's staying true to what you believe, the culture, the little things that you expect to see within the building, on the field, in the training session, and staying the course, and obviously making some adjustments as you go along the way. But those big items, those big value items as far as culture is concerned, I think is critical in order to be able to repeat performances as the year goes on.
So an interesting dynamic kind of intertwined in this tapestry is, as an analyst or as a media member, all we can analyze are results. All we can analyze are matches. All we can analyze, Bill Parcells famously said, you are what your record says you are. And for fans and supporters, all they care about are results. We could drone on and on about Diego's habits or Rafa's work ethic. If you're a fan, you want to win. If you're a media member, you analyze results. And Nick Saban Nick Saban, great college football coach and really one of the better leaders in all of sport in this generation, gave an interesting interview this week where he said he became a better coach when he separated himself from results and focused on the process, right? Which, again, counterintuitive to what sport is about, which is winning and losing. But talk about that a little bit when it comes to a weird dynamic for most to understand, separating yourself from results and focusing on winning the day?
Yeah, and I think I saw that interview, and he was talking about the type of leadership being transformational versus transactional.
Right.
And I think the transactional piece is if we win, from a coaching perspective, I'm going to really love on you guys, and I'm going to make sure that 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 you feel good about what we're doing. But if we lose, however, I'm going to pin it on you guys as players, right? So it's transactional. You give me something, I give you something. If you don't give it to me, then I take it back. And I think the transformational piece is, listen, we're going to go by process. I'm going to love on all you through wins, through losses, through good times, through bad times. I am here. My job here is to lead this group. It's not to judge you guys. It's to continue to build something and make sure that we're all moving in the same direction. We're going to have some good games. We're going to have some bad games. But here are the processes that we have in place. This is our roadmap, and this is where we want to go. And these are the expectations and the behaviors that we want to see. But my job as a leader is to make sure I have those behaviors and those habits that I want to see in the players, and that becomes transformational. And so I think when you're going through tough times and the players see that you're not pointing the finger and you're not, flipping cans over because you're not winning games, they begin to understand that every result that we don't get, every result that goes against us is an opportunity to learn about ourselves, right, and to grow as coaches, as players. And so the interview that you're talking about, really resonated with me because a lot of things I do we're found in those words, which is, yeah, of course, media, fans, everyone wants to win. However, if we're going just on winning, we'll never get there because we don't know how to get there. We don't have a process in place. We don't have a game model to follow. We don't know how to, change things, to autocorrect along the way because we don't have a process or we don't have a plan. And so I think it's both important to have a great culture, and then from a leadership perspective is to stay true to what you believe and what you can control. Because again, results you can't control, but the processes and the culture that you're, working in and amongst is definitely under your control. And so I think that's where, the difference between transformational and transactional take place.
So you have an interesting perspective on this when it comes to what I want to ask you next, because you were a player once upon a time and now you're a coach. And look, as we all age, none of us are as young as we used to be. Perspective comes into play, and you can appreciate and learn things that maybe you didn't fully appreciate and learn when you're a late teenager or in your early 20s. When you're playing, you feel like you are judged only on results and only on wins and losses. And if you're a striker, you're judged on your stats and how many goals have you scored. If you're a midfielder, how many assists do you have? If you're a keeper, how many clean sheets do you have? So when it comes to the challenges of the message you and I are talking about resonating with players, how do you kind of overcome that, knowing that you've been in their seat once upon a time and you understand that as a young player, you and I can drone on about this philosophy all you want, but yeah, I need to score goals and we need to win. How do you make this message resonate with your players?
No, that's again another great question, and I think it's different for all the players, right? Because I think every player is on a different journey in their personal career, right? Their individual career, and then we all meet together as a collective. So I would say again, the expectations are no different than they are for a coach, right? The expectations of the coach is that you have to win. Same thing with players is like if you're a striker, you have to score goals. If you're a midfielder, assists and break up plays and et cetera. I think the other part to winning is that you have to be right. You have to have certain players around said player to be successful, right? I think you have to have where I go to last year where we were top 3 in the league in goal outputs, right? We had Chicho, we had Crooks, we had Andres Gomez, and we had Luna, and we were the 3rd best attacking team in the league in MLS. And now the 3 of those 4 were gone, and now we struggle this year. So we can have all these expectations, but the roster is just as important to have a good balance of players in order for the individual to thrive as well, right? So it's not just on the player to have a good thing. You have to have players around you that make your job easier. And I think when you look around the teams that are doing really well, I think there's a really good balance in the roster. And I feel now at this point, we have a really good balance in our roster. So after the summer transfer, we have two guys in Juan and Victor that can come in and take a little bit of load off of Luna and take a little load off of Diogo. And then actually in the last game, Diogo and Diego were fantastic, but it took some time to get these guys in the building, right? So I think, the expectations never change as far as like continuous, like having objectives for each player to hit, depending on what position they play. The expectations from my standpoint is that we're always striving to get better. And so what that means for different players in different positions varies. But the expectations are always the same. Like if you're a striker, you need to score goals, right? If you're a midfielder, you got to make plays. If you're a coach, you need to win games. But I think it's that's understood. But it's also the understanding needs to be that we have to have the right complement of players in order for all those things to be successful. So in other words, winning is alignment from ownership in their investment, front office, and getting players, coaches, and making sure the tactics are good, and players executing on game day. And I think that's where you become a perennial playoff team. But all those things have to be there. If one of those areas is not hit, then the chances of you being successful are going to be, very, very slim, given how competitive the MLS is in 2025 and moving forward.
Yeah, and you really hit the nail on the head when it comes to being as reductive as possible. If you don't have the horses, you don't have a chance. I mean, there's no such thing as a great coach without great players. In 1988, the Jazz played the Lakers, and the Lakers were coached by Pat Riley in the playoffs, and the Jazz actually pushed them to 7 games. And Pat Riley was asked about why he's confident in his team to win Game 7. He said, I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson. I mean, ultimately, we can talk about philosophy all you want, but you have to have the talent at your disposal. But you reference ownership, and I do think the good news for you, Pablo, is the Millers have a track record of trusting in their coaches and believing in their coaches if the process is correct. So Jerry Sloan took over for Frank Layden, and Frank actually left the cupboard full for Jerry, and Jerry coached under the Miller stewardship for basically 20 years. So have you felt that support when it comes to the new ownership group? Do you feel like you're in lockstep with them? Do you feel like they understand what you're trying to accomplish, not just for today, but the process that's put in place to make this thing, sustainable long term?
Yeah, no, it's been really good in my conversations with, the Miller ownership, in particular, Steve Starks. His vision is to build something sustainable in Salt Lake that all the fans can rally behind and make this the premier, professional sports team in market. And understanding that, and I think, the way they looked at it in the first bit was to see what we had, right, and get to know the league a little bit better. And obviously with Jason moving into a new role and kind of, advising from his perspective, just giving them, this is what's been successful in the league. This is what works. This is what we're trying to do as a club. This is how much time we'll need to get to that spot. So all those things I think are in place. And I feel like, the club is in great hands with the new ownership. And there's no doubt that they'll continue to invest in a way that makes sense for the way we want to play and for the way we want to build a team for the long term. And I think you have to start thinking about keeping some important pieces that maybe in the past we would have looked to move on from, but to be able to build something. And a lot like the group when you had, the Borchers and the Beckermans and the Ramondos and the Javi Morales, you had just pieces that could have easily gone to different clubs. But, the club at the time was such a strong club, and the reason was because you had reliable, experienced, quality players and people. And I think that's the direction that from my conversations that the Miller ownership group wants to move towards, and it feels right, Spence. It feels right. So hopefully we finish the season off the right way and get in the playoffs and continue to build this thing. But I feel good about the direction we're moving in for sure. Yeah,
I worked for them for 7 years, and I can tell you that really they're very fair, good people. So hopefully this thing can really gain some momentum and continue to go. And Steve's a good leader, so I'm glad you've had a good experience. You referenced the home and home with LA, and I don't want to belabor the point, but it just was hard to ignore. Sonny, I'm a Tottenham guy, who they paid more for him than your entire roster, respectively.
Right.
You know, you know, you reference kind of the quality of their two main players. So you look at the numbers, and bottom line is they outscored you 8-2 in 2 games. The aggregate was 8-2. But were you able to learn anything about your team going up against a team like that has invested heavily and has 2 world-class stars that ultimately punished you, it seemed like, with every mistake you made?
Right. Yeah. You know, again, I think for me, and the way my mindset is I'm always thinking about being, you know, the way just think about the profession, just think about the club that we want to be, is always thinking about playing as if we are the best team in this league. And some people might think I'm crazy, right? But I wanted to go at home. I wanted to make sure that we were carrying the game in LA. So that means dictating where we're going to play the game, dictating how much possession we're going to have. You know, in both of those games, we had some of our highest touches in our opponent's box, right? And these things don't mean anything when the score is lopsided as it was. And so I take away from that, like, we attacked the way we wanted to attack. The problem was at home, we made quite a few mistakes that led to the goals that we conceded. But looking through the result, I said, that's how I want to play, because if we're gonna be a great team, we've got to be able to go toe to toe with these guys. And yeah, initially the score line's terrible. There's no 2 ways about that. But I felt really good about the performance, minus the 4 moments that cost us the game. And then we went to LA, and I'm saying, well, if we're going to go try to invade somebody's castle in like medieval times, we got to go willing to lose our heads if we're going to take it over. If not, we're just going to just die on our knees in front of our goal. Like, we're just going to protect our goal with 2 guys that are sharpshooters. It's like we'll never have an ability to attack. So we went the second game, got on the board first, and I thought for the first half we played a fantastic first half, one of the best. Pinned them in their half, made them suffer. But of course, in the last 5 minutes, another like crazy call where there could have been a red card against these guys. They didn't even look at it. Afterwards, they said, yeah, it was definitely a red card. And so there was that moment where, like, game plan was going great. We're up 1-0. There's a red card. We're up a man. Now we're controlling the game +1. There's no doubt we would have won that game. However, Sonny and Belonga do their thing, and they score 2 before half. And so now we're behind it. And I think with that group, when you're behind it, you're opening yourself up, because these guys are just, again, they're lethal in the way they attack. So, you know, so my point, Spence, is then going into the Austin game, I kept telling the guys, like, you guys played really, really well. If we eliminate 4 or 5 moments or 8 moments in the last 2 games, we're fine. And if we capitalize in our opponent's box, because we had 44 touches in LA's box at home, we had 33 touches in their box away from home, which are like season highs for us. Guys, we're right there. And sure enough, in this last game, we capitalized on our chances, you know, minimized their counterattack, and we played one of our best games of the season. So, and that comes on the heels of 2 really bad results, but for me, 2 really solid performances. And so that's always the conundrum in coaching, Spence, is that sometimes you have to look through the results to kind of find your way and build belief within the group. And I think the guys are, you know, feeling it now after that last performance. And this week in training, it's been amazing how the guys have now changed their focus and understanding that we have 3 games left to get in the playoffs, and we're going to get in there.
So let's dig in on Austin a little deeper. You know, you go with Olatunji and Cruz up top. Diogo and Diego play together, which is good to see, because I don't think we've seen all of your pieces together very much. And DeAndre starts at outside back, and he opens his bank account, soccer term, kids, for when a player scores his first goal for a team. I suppose, and this is just me thinking out loud on paper, maybe a Mecca in for Caliscan if everything's being equal, and then Ojeda right there as well. But, you know, back 4 with Glad and Vera, Yedlin, Katranis, obviously Rafa in goal. How close is that to what I would just ask you is your first choice 11?
Yeah, I would say that's the group right there. Okay. And ironically, you know, we didn't have Gozo in with the group. He's on the field right now playing against France. I'm watching. But it was really interesting, because I thought it was a really experienced performance from the group. Like, I think Diogo brought a lot of calm. Obviously, the goal that he sets up for DeAndre was class. But, like, I just felt like it was a much more controlled performance. And I think Gozo gives us a bunch of energy and stretch, which would have been great coming into this game. And so I think, you know, moving forward, I think there's like you said, you know, maybe a Mecca comes in. Pablo Ruiz is back healthy. We have some options. But I think the one thing with Noel Caliscan is that he's a metronome. He's a communicator. He keeps the ball ticking. He's soccer aware. So, I think right now in the run of form that he's in is been extremely good. So I think those pairings have been good. But I think now it just gives us the opportunity to start, cementing what it looks like moving towards the stretch. But I think the guys played extremely well against Austin. And this is a team that's coming, they had 2 or 3 good results. They rotated their group a little bit. But to me, that never makes a difference because then they rotate their players back in with 30 minutes left to go when our guys are already tired. So it kind of is a bit of a wash. So really pleased with the way the guys attack the game. And again, I think when we play in our opponent's half and we're locked in for transition, I feel like we're a top team in this league. And so that's the mindset now going against, which will be a scrappy team against Colorado. They've been getting results, and they're a tough team to play against. So we've got to be dialed in. But I think this game against Austin hopefully is a good blueprint for the way we approach the rest of these games moving forward.
So I'm just interested here, Pablo, when it comes to the Caliscan kid over Emeka. I mean, Emeka was hurt, but it did feel like there were times both last year and the start of this year that he was among your best players. Is it just a matter of him maybe not coming back to form after health, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah. I think that's the case, Spence. I think he's had a stop-start type of season. And I think, the first game against LA, there's a couple moments where, I was asking him, I sat with him and looked at some video and I said, what happened here? And he's like, yeah, I was just coming into the game a little bit leggy. And so there's just, there's all kinds of little things that I think start to add up as the season goes on. And I just think that at the moment, Emeka's training great. He's ready to go. I think when he came in the game at the weekend, he did a fantastic job. So it's really just about, Noel for me has just been riding this wave, starting at right back and now playing in the middle of midfield where he's got the, for us, because we play so high up the field, one of our pivots has to always have their head on a swivel when we're in the attacking half and organizing what we call our shape behind the ball, or some people call rest defense, so that if we lose the ball, everyone's in good positions to now repress so that we don't get these breakaways that we conceded against LAFC. And so Noel is the king of just organizing all that stuff in front of our back line to make sure that we're all in good positions to repress. And so, I think it's more just playing the hot hand and the guy that's in really good form. But there's no two ways about it that Emeka is a top midfielder in this league.
All right, before I say you loose, you referenced Colorado in town. It's a rival of sorts, of course, with the Rocky Mountain Cup. I think you need to win by 2 goals to grab the cup. But if it's not as important or more important, you've got to get all 3, of course, finishing with 2 on the road. So they concede a lot. They've allowed 53 goals. That's, I think, 5th worst in the league. Their goal differential is -11. They've been bad away from home, so I guess that's good. And, of course, you're looking up at them. So this is one of those 6-point swings. What do they do well? How do you get 3 at home, Pablo?
Well, what they do really well is they're a good pressing team, and I think it's going to be a battle of wills. We're a team that like to play out of the back. They're a team that like to press press really high, and so for us, it's making sure that we start the game mixing it up, right? We want to be a little bit more vertical because they're willing to go man to man and leave their center backs isolated at times, and I feel like with Juan Cruz and Victor, we have a bit of an advantage in that department, so I don't know that they're going to come do that with us, but we're ready for it. I think the other part too is they're a great transition team, so they'll break a place close to their goal and they'll get out on the break, and they're they just go, it's jailbreak time. They'll send 4 or 5 guys on these transitions, so a little bit of what we experienced against LAFC. So for us, it's really dictating the pace of the game. We want it to be sharp. We want it to be a little bit more vertical than we typically play, given that that's what they've been given other opponents. And then we want to finish plays. In other words, if we break a line, to your point, they've conceded a lot of goals, and it's because they're so eager to go press that they leave their back line exposed at times. So when we break their lines, we've got to finish plays, and we'll find opportunities to do that. But I think in these derby games, just to sum it up, Spence, I think this is really about emotion and passion and having some emotional control as well, right? So I think it's going to be a chippy game, 2 teams that are, playing for a lot. There's a cup on the line. There's the playoffs on the line. Our positions are really close to each other in the table, so you got to compete the right way in these matches. That's first and foremost. And then once you gain the upper hand with the competition piece, now you can start, exploiting your opponent with some tactics. But it's got to be, you got to match the intensity of the game, and I think it's going to be a fast-paced game. But it should be a great one, and I'm so excited that this moment has come where this cup's on the line, and we have a great chance to get in the playoffs.
Well, as you know, man, this is what you train for, these moments like this. So always cheering for you. Go get 3, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Spence. Appreciate it, bud.
All right, Pablo Mastroeni, big one, massive one. Colorado in town to take on RSL, 7:30 in Sandy. RSL needing all 3. I think they need to win by 2 goals to win the Rocky Mountain Cup. And then 2 games on the road to finish. They will be without Diego Luna and I believe Brian Ojeda, who's been called up for national team duty, certainly against Seattle. I don't know about St. Louis. I think Diego will be gone for that match as well. But anyway, needing all 3 coming up Saturday, RSL Colorado. All right, I want to tell you about my friends at IFA Country Stores. With IFA's Step 4 fall and winter lawn food, you'll get stronger roots now and an early green up next spring. It's the ultimate lawn owner power move. We'll catch a break, but week 5 of pro football starts tonight. A little Thursday night football. We're going to preview that game and talk some big picture football with Lindsey Rhodes. College football later with Dave Bartu, little sports court too. We'll take you up until 6 o'clock, then we'll send it over to coverage of Thursday night football. So no reason to go anywhere. Keep it right here on a Thursday afternoon edition of The Drive, and it's good to have you along for the ride on ESPN 700. All right, Thursday Night Football comes your way on our station after we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. It will be the Niners and the Rams at SoFi. Rams are healthy, 8.5-point favorite. The Niners are without their starting quarterback for the second time in 3 weeks. Brock Purdy still out with a toe. Our next guest, friend of the program, to talk some pro football, Lindsay Rhodes from Sumer Sports on a Thursday. Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing better than the Niners roster is, man. I mean, they're going to be without Brock Purdy and seemingly everyone else you've ever heard of that's on that team.
Yeah, I feel like this, and we have a lot of Niner fans around here. It's the Steve Young effect, as I call it. I feel like this franchise has been pretty snake-bitten over the past few years, yeah?
Yeah, they just had just terrible, terrible injury luck. I mean, I'm kind of joking about it, but it's really wild, the number of people that they're going to be without tonight. And then the fact on top of that they're still waiting for Brandon Ayuk to come back, the ninth highest paid wide receiver in the league who they haven't had all season. And then just the simple irony of the fact that CMC is the player that will play tonight after like everyone, debating all August as they're trying to figure out what to do in their fantasy draft, the viability of trusting CMC from an injury standpoint. He's like the only guy there this season that's remained healthy.
My producer is reminding me there's a lot of conversation about, the field conditions for San Francisco. I mean, look, we have a local college football team with the University of Utah that the past couple of years it's been the same thing. I mean, injuries to quarterback and elsewhere. And whenever there's a litany of injuries, I guess we try to place blame. But do you take any stock into the conversation about maybe the surroundings, the field conditions causing some of these injuries?
I don't know. I don't know that I'm an expert on that or really have much to add to that conversation, but certainly it's worth looking into, right? Like different field conditions everywhere. I mean, OBJ just brought that up this past week about MetLife and the fact that these major injuries continue to happen there as well. So I don't know if that is specifically related to different stadiums or if that's kind of the cost of doing business in the NFL. I'm not 100% sure, but that's certainly worth looking into.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk, Nick Bosa, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Brock Purdy. I mean, it's hard to even compete, when it comes to all these injuries. Reasonable expectations for Mac Jones under center against a very clever and, potent L.A. defense.
It's so hard to assess what we're going to see from San Francisco's offense in this game simply because of the number of pieces that are lifted out, right? Like it's one thing to say, okay, well, we've got an offense. We kind of know what to expect. And now, Ricky Pearsall's hurt. So take him out. Well, you can kind of move some of the pieces around and figure it out. But now you're not only taking Brock Purdy out and putting Mac Jones in, which we've seen, but you're also taking away Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, who are there. They have essentially accounted for 40% of the receiving yards that the team has picked up all season. And then obviously Kittle has been out for a while. You are already metabolizing the loss of Nick Bosa on the defensive side, which I think changes things dramatically. I think we saw that last week. Just the fact that you don't have that one person there, I think we're probably going to see San Francisco's defense blitz more than we're used to seeing them blitz because it's hard to generate pressure with without Bosa on the field. So I just think the sheer number of changes all at one time make it really hard to predict what we're going to see. I think obviously Christian McCaffrey is and has always been a big part of their passing game. And so I think to a degree that's beneficial. I think we'll see a lot from, I'm going to butcher the last name of the tight end, Jake Tongus.
Nailed it. No, that's it. You nailed it. Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. I think he's an interesting one to watch. And then, I mean, are we talking about Kendrick Bourne making plays?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know how comfortable I feel about that. But I do think, obviously Christian McCaffrey's a big part of their game plan here. But I have my eyes on that tight end in particular.
It feels like, and I'm a big Sean McVay fan, who isn't, but the Rams are kind of like this sneaky pick as long as Stafford stays upright. And look, you could do worse than Garoppolo as a backup. The Niners know that, but the Rams healthy favorite to win tonight. I think most of us believe they will, and they'll move to 4-1. Are you a buyer on the Rams? Maybe, I guess the way I'll phrase it, Lindsay, is like just kind of a under the radar, not a obvious option to have something to say about this at the end.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way of describing how I feel about them. I actually am more a buyer of the Rams than I was at the beginning of the year, and the Rams are a team that I've always kind of had in that conversation, but more on the periphery of that conversation. What I think they've done in the first 4 weeks is solidified the fact that they are a team that we really need to take seriously at the end of the year. Barring any major injuries or things that change their trajectory, what we've seen so far is a team that was good last year, right? Went to the playoffs in a weather game in Philadelphia, and they were in it till the end and narrowly lost. And they have gotten better this year. This is the, in terms of yards per play differential. This was I get weird stats that I get enamored with on a week-to-week basis, and this is the one I dove way too deeply into this week. Yards per play differential, looking at the number of plays that you average per play on offense versus the number of plays that you average on defense. You want this number, the differential number, to be as big as possible because you obviously, ideally, want your defensive number to be like negative, right? So the differential here is 1.45. That is the number one yards per play differential in the league. And more interesting, I think, for this conversation, when you take that yards per play differential and you compare it to the yards per play differential from last year. So yards per play differential change from last season, it's 1.71. They lead the NFL in that category. And that essentially means that they are, starting with the yards per play differential just for this season, that means they're averaging, every time there is a play in the game, they're averaging nearly 1.5 yards more than their opponent on average for every play. And then the change being so high means that this team that we already thought was good last year is arguably the most improved team in the NFL so far this year. And I think that that's a little bit scary.
Wow. All right, moving off this game tonight, Jackson Dart played his high school ball about 25 miles away from our studio here downtown. And, you know, Brian Dayball I think he's coaching for his job, Lindsay. So at some point you're kind of like, dude, you got to do something. And the numbers don't necessarily jump out, but he did for them what he's always done. And he always talks about how he's not just a quarterback, he's a football player. He comes from a football family. So at least early returns, one game, Jackson Dart under center for the Giants. They get a win against a good team. How sustainable do you think it is with this young kid under center?
So the thing that I loved from him was obviously he changes the game and his ability to extend drives and get out of broken plays, which, you know, they're not a great team. And so there have been a lot of broken plays so far this season, and hence the rookie quarterback, is playing. His scrambling ability is an extra wrinkle for this offense that Russell Wilson was not able to bring anymore. And coincidentally, because that was sort of like the strength of his game in the early going. But for several years, that's not been something that he's been able to do. So I do love that about Jackson Dart. I thought it was just the ultimate bad luck situation. And ironically, or coincidentally, that it happened in a game against the Chargers. It was like both teams just having the worst luck kind of in ways that encapsulate their entire franchises right now in one game, where you've got the Chargers who are off to a great start and then suffer, one of the biggest blows that they could have suffered from an injury standpoint in their left tackle and Joe Alt, considering that they were already without Rashawn Slater. And so you're like, okay, that's a bummer because they were so good and now they're kind of toast because you can't replace two of the best tackles in the league and expect to continue going on at the trajectory that you were on. The Giants, same thing. Great win where you get this momentum building thing and you get to see this young quarterback working with the young wide receiver Malik Neighbors and also Cam Scatterbo, and maybe we're building something here from a momentum standpoint. We got to win, and in the process lose arguably our most important offensive player. Like the inability for him to have moving forward Malik Neighbors on the field to help with his development is going to inhibit his development. So this is a very long-winded way of saying I am optimistic about Jackson Dart. I don't want us to evaluate his play too quickly. And I would say that about every rookie quarterback. Hit pause. Like, I know we all want to win as many games as possible, but once you pivot to the rookie quarterback, you have to be willing to sacrifice a win here or there in the interest of a healthy development curve for that quarterback. That long-term investment has to be the most important thing. And so, I just hope that people kind of, if they lose this weekend to New Orleans, people are going to freak out and say the sky is falling because New Orleans has been terrible this year. I think it might happen. At least I think that it's going to be more evenly matched up than Giants fans will want it to be. And I don't think we should freak out about it.
So look, dynasties end. They just do. But after a couple of losses to open the season, it felt like a lot of people were just out on the Chiefs, which is dangerous when you have that head coach and that quarterback.
And silly.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I don't know that I would pick them to win the thing, but now that they've won a couple of straight games, where are you at after 4 weeks when it comes to the Chiefs?
Yeah, well, before any of this happened, I did pick them to win it, and I'm not moving off of it yet.
Okay.
And the reason why is because we've seen too many times them come out. I mean, the last couple of years, it's been like cut, paste. Oh, the Chiefs don't look that great. Oh, what? They're still in the Super Bowl? Like, we need to learn our lesson with regards to them to a degree. Now, yes, you can get to a point where it's worth talking about whether or not they can keep this up. I think those are all valid conversations. But this year, the thing that really stood out to me was the fact that Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice were not on the field. So for the first couple of games, you're essentially asking them to do, to a degree, what we're going to look at the Niners do tonight, which is play shorthanded. Like, you just don't have the roster that you built. And in this case, the roster's coming back. We have Xavier Worthy now back. Oh, gosh, they looked a lot better last week, didn't they? Shocker. And then after 6 games, we're going to get Rashee Rice back. And so you're going to have the Chiefs, again, barring some twist of fate or injury, you're going to have them clicking on all cylinders at the time where they need to going into the playoffs. And there's no chance that I would write them off. So regardless of whatever ways they haven't looked as strong as they have in years past, I would pitch to you that we literally had this conversation at this time last year too. So I think at the very least, we all just need to kind of slow our roll when it comes to wanting to put an end to that dynasty. I just don't think we're there yet.
So to start the season, Vegas told us, at least in the AFC, don't overthink it. It's either Buffalo or Baltimore. I do want to talk Bills in a moment. But now that the Ravens have started 1-3 and a litany of injury issues, including Lamar potentially coming up, is it getting late early for Baltimore?
Yeah, the problem with Baltimore is, for me, they've had such a tough early season schedule. So they are a pretty good example of a team, I think, that you could say, okay, like there's going to be an opportunity to climb back into this, and you can sort of explain away some of the early season struggles as not being struggles in terms of win-loss record anyway, but more an indication of we've played good teams, and so this is just the way the schedule has shaken out. I am a little bit concerned about what we're seeing on the defensive side of the ball because it feels so anomalous to what we're used to seeing there. So kind of the opposite of the Kansas City conversation where it's like, yeah, we've seen them struggle and then continue to win games anyway and be fine. They can dig themselves out of holes. We haven't really seen Baltimore look the way that they've looked on defense this year. And so that part I do want to keep my eye on. The thing that concerns me for them is that they had this tough early season schedule luck and weren't able to win those games. And then if you lose Lamar for an extended period of time, and I know that that's up for debate, whether or not he's going to be out or for how long or whatever, but if he is, then you put yourself in a situation where you just I'm afraid of them losing too many games that they can't dig themselves out of the hole mathematically. That's my sole concern with them, because otherwise, if I knew he was going to come back and they wouldn't be, then I just think that he's such a game changer, and I have faith that they're going to figure it out on defense. Because they always have. There are just some teams that have the pieces there, and for whatever reason, it doesn't all come together on a week-to-week basis, but it's hard to go against something that you have seen work before. Like the Eagles' offense, for instance. I mean, I know that it's worth having a conversation about, but I'm like, what's different about the offense? What is it? Like, what point to the thing that is different than the offense that was on the field in the Super Bowl last year that won? You know, like, They do this every once in a while where we have to have conversations about why aren't you throwing to A.J. Brown? And then they figure it out. Like, if the talent is there, I have to have faith that that these teams that have consistently done it before are going to find a way to do it again. But again, Baltimore's defense, probably the unit that I would circle the most as being concerned about.
Yeah, your point about Philly is really where I'm at with Buffalo, and I know a lot of people think that maybe they need maybe one more wide receiver at Josh Allen's disposal. But look, you just pass every test that's in front of you, and the Bills have passed every test that's in front of them. You know, I said for years, Lindsay, and I know Aaron got his Super Bowl, but I always thought like he was too talented to only win one. I mean, best quarterback in the league for maybe 5, 6, 7 years. Tom Brady himself said Aaron Rodgers has more talent in his little finger than he does in his whole body. And I just feel like Josh is too good. And at some point, he is going to break through. Is it starting to feel like maybe this is the year that Bills Mafia will celebrate a Super Bowl?
I mean, they seem in a lot of ways. I want to make sure I'm not ignoring anyone. I mean, I very much like what Detroit has done after week one, too, right? And the way that they bounced back from that game. But, yeah, the Bills are definitely a team that's kind of looking like they might have all of the pieces. And so all of the things that you're saying about the lack of wide receivers and the way that they've built that offense, very similar to, in some ways, the conversations that we're having about Kansas City or have had for years, right? Like, it's almost like they think from a roster building standpoint that they have the luxury of not having to pay for that position because the talent of the quarterback is going to lift an otherwise average to above average wide receiver into a range of production that is above that. And I think there's probably some truth to that, and I think we're seeing that play out in Buffalo. But they're still number one in offensive EPA per play. They're number one in total offensive EPA. They're, interestingly, though, not in the passing categories. Number one in rush EPA per play. Number one in rush touchdowns. Number one in rush yards. Like, on offense, it's all kind of working, and so it's hard to argue with the way that you get there. But I think that there's no doubt that, I mean, and this is true for every team, you want a quarterback that is a tractor as opposed to a trailer. I love the way that Daniel Jeremiah always talks about quarterbacks in that way when it comes to the draft. You're looking for someone that can pull the rest of the team along with them and not someone who can just go along for the ride in the right environment. I think we're seeing examples of trailers in other cities and some of the veteran quarterbacks who are experiencing success in like their third team, right? Like a Sam Darnold. There's no doubt that Josh Allen is a tractor, and he pulls the team along with them, and that's what you're hoping to have. That's what you're looking for in the draft every year when you're trying to draft a quarterback, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I am a lifelong fan of the hapless New York football Jets, and I wonder if you think we do anything well, Lindsay. Anything at all? Are we good at anything?
Anything well.
Anything at all?
You're putting me on the spot here.
Play hard? I don't know.
So hard. I'll tell you what, this is not what you're looking for at all. But yeah, no, never mind. I was going to make a point about like the primary thing that I walked away from last week was that somebody needs to get Brian Daboll some sunscreen because that man is so committed to all of these things that he is putting his life in danger. Like he bent down and he had the strongest line on the back of his neck. That man is standing outside without any protection on his skin. Anyway, the Giants, again, Jackson Dart looks like he could be, he feels a little bakery to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's less of like the way that he plays and more of kind of the swag that he has. But I think that could be a good shot for that locker room if they're able to have a little bit of success. Malik Neighbors is obviously one of the best wide receivers in the league. So when he's back and healthy, you have something to build on. Cam Scatterbu, love what I'm seeing from him. And he's going to kind of create an interesting situation for us come draft time in terms of how we evaluate players like him, you know, and the fact that he was able to fall so far when on the surface you're like, yeah, he did this in college too. So how did we miss this? So the thing that I actually like that they do well, I think they have a really good core young group of guys. I don't necessarily think, like I said, that that's going to lead to a great win-loss record this year. But I don't think anyone expected the Giants to win the Super Bowl this year. So I realize that this is somebody talking who is not emotionally invested in every play or result on every Sunday, but I really just want them to not mess up the development curve. because once you pivot off of Russell Wilson, you're kind of punting this season, and you are saying, let's get better for the future. And, good for Daboll for attaching himself to Jackson Dart in the way that he did, so that if Jackson Dart looks good, then maybe he can kind of keep going along on that ride.
So let's move over to the NFC. We talked a lot of AFC. We did preview Thursday Night Football, and you referenced the Philly stuff, and I couldn't agree more. And look, I know that wide receivers are prima donnas. I know all these guys want their stats, and everyone views football these days through the prism of whether or not they bet on the game or their wide receiver is playing in fantasy football. But if you pass every test every week, why the conversation about whether or not it's working, right? Like, what do you make of all the narratives around Philly?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle there, right? Because I think that some conversations are worth having. You can win a bunch of games or lose a bunch of games, like we talked about with some of these other teams in the early going, and how good you are might not actually be reflected in your win-loss record. Mm-hmm. We just are at a point in the season where the sample size is so small that really small variances will send us off in a different direction. So it's worthwhile to dive into the numbers and to take a deeper look. And I do think that there's some evidence that Philadelphia is not as good as they were last year. I told you about that yards per play differential change. They're last in the league in yards per play differential change this season. They are they're down 2. Yeah, 209 is their 205 is their yard per play differential change from last season. That's a big drop per play, averaging 2 yards less than their opponents than they were last year. So I do think it's a valid conversation to say, what's going on here and why aren't they as good? On the flip side of that, maybe it's also valid to just acknowledge, and a lot of people pointed to this during the season, that they were so over-the-top dominant last year that was something that couldn't be maintained and that regression was coming. They were going to revert to a mean or an average of what was expected, and maybe that's all we're seeing. Maybe they were just so extremely good last year we could have never expected that to continue, and so that's what we're seeing there. Or maybe we're seeing something that's indicative of something that's more problematic. What I don't like, though, is kind of what you're indicating, where people go off and have all of these shouty conversations about people being terrible or people being amazing. And I don't think that they warrant that at all. The sky is not falling, but they might not be as good as they were last year. Both can be true.
Well said. Last team I want to ask you about, as we are in the geographic footprint that leads to a lot of Denver Bronco fans here in our market. Hope last year, and, Bo Nix was the quarterback for Oregon when they rolled up here to Salt Lake a couple years ago, and I was on the sideline, and his command over that, and they smoked Utah, injury-riddled Utah team, but I left wildly impressed. Sean Payton obviously agreed. They're 2-2 after 4. What do you make on, just as far as what we could see the rest of the way with the Denver Broncos?
They're interesting because how can I say this? I think we were having some conversations at Sumer Sports earlier today and yesterday where Bo Nix's name came up, and I pointed out that there is a pretty strong disparity in how people are viewing his play right now in a way that I think is interesting, because there are a lot of people online who are looking at his numbers from this past week in particular, or some of his other statistical numbers. There are even some people who said they watched his film and they thought that he looked really, really good. Our scoring system does not suggest that. It suggests that there's a lot of work still to be done by Bo Nix, and that he hasn't played particularly well this year. And I know that PFF does the same thing. And so I think it's really interesting and something that I want to look into further about why there is this disparity in conversation in what people are seeing when they watch Bo Nix play. But I know that I work with some colleagues that think that he's at a stage of his development where stuff has gone on with him this year where he needs to improve in a lot of ways, and that the offense has been carried a lot more by the fact that they have a stronger backfield than they did last season. And I think that's objectively true. So I'm really interested to keep an eye on him and see just on a game-by-game basis kind of how his command and consistency evolves, because I do think that that's the other thing, especially with young quarterbacks, that I always hear people say, even with Cam Ward, right, and Caleb Williams, perfect example. People go, oh, but they had these 2 plays where they did this crazy thing, and I was like, that guy's got it. And my point to those people is every quarterback in the NFL has the ability to do that for a handful of plays. What makes a good quarterback in the NFL is someone who can be consistently above average in every way. Like, you can't have splash plays every once in a while and then give it back on the next play because you held onto the ball too long and you took a sack, right? So it's sometimes the boring things and doing those things well and doing them play after play after play that are really the hardest parts of a quarterback's development curve and the things that we don't necessarily see as much.
Lindsay, where can people go find your work, my friend?
Sumer Sports, we have a podcast. We just ran through our first quarter Sumer Score leaders at every position. That show was out yesterday. You can go find it on YouTube, Sumer Sports, or wherever you get your podcast. It's the Sumer Sports Show. Also discuss some of the numbers behind who the best teams are through this point in the season. And if you're interested in any of the advanced data points that I've kind of dropped here and there throughout the show, you can go to sumersports.com, and all of those advanced numbers are available for you to filter in whatever way you see fit for free.
Lindsay, thank you for the time. Enjoy the game tonight. We'll chat soon, okay?
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right, Lindsay Rhodes, drop the guys. You heard it. You heard it. Just drop the guys, okay? I'm just saying. You know the deal.
I'm just saying.
You're
insecure about it.
No, I'm not insecure. I'm just pointing it out. Just saying. She dropped the guys. The Tigers advance. They win. All right, we're going to do some college football with Dave Bartu coming up. But before we catch a break, I want to tell you about a new client that we have on the show. And I'm excited about this because it's a personal testimonial that I can give you based off of working with them for a number of months. Here's the deal. If you're aging a bit in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, you feel yourself wearing down a little bit, if you lack motivation to get to the gym, or, as I experienced, maybe you've been actually exercising and cleaned up your diet, cleaned up some habits, and you are not seeing the results that you saw once upon a time. I mean, the fact of the matter is, you guys know the deal. When we were teenagers, then in college, maybe you got to get a little loose with the habits when you're in college and you decide to get in shape. You can get in shape in your early 20s in like 3 to 4 months. It's not that easy as you age. So for me, a couple years ago, my whole thing was I want to get into the best shape of my life as somebody who is in my mid-40s at this point, maybe late 40s, whatever, 47 years old, you judge. So started working out, cleaned up my habits, cleaned up a bunch of my diet issues, started eating really clean, started going to the gym every day. And within 3 to 4 months, I'm like, I'm not seeing results, at least the results I was looking for. So I had a couple of friends that had utilized testosterone therapy that recommended it, which I had never tried before. So I went to Game Day Men's Health, and they helped me out with testosterone therapy and peptides. Within the next 3 to 4 months, I saw like 5 times the results that I had seen in the previous 3 to 4 months when I was exercising without the ability to utilize these products. Now, these products, once upon a time, were kind of just left for celebrities, rich people, or high-end athletes. It's not how it works anymore because it's super affordable with the deal that Game Day Men's Health has. So if your libido's slowing down, if you and your wife are not, well, this can fix that. If you wake up and lack motivation, actually exercise, this can fix that. If you're exercising and you haven't seen results, I can promise you this will help with that. I'm simply in the best shape of my life at the age of 47. Okay, so number one is they're going to give you a free consultation. Typically, it's a big charge, but it's free because they're working with us. So go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com, schedule that consultation. Tell them you heard me talking about it. It's on the house. So what they do is they take a little bit of blood, doesn't take that much time. Then they go over your results with you. And then they take you through their list of products that they recommend as far as what could help. Like I said, I'm utilizing testosterone therapy. I'm also using peptides. They've got the weight loss stuff, semaglutide, tirzepatide. If you're into that stuff, they can help you out with that. But the kicker is this. They're giving you 50% off your first-year membership. So you get a free consultation, then 50% off all their products. And I can promise you, if you are patient and you actually put in the work and you utilize these services from Game Day Men's Health, you give yourself 5-6 months, you're going to be in the best shape of your life. Okay? I can just tell you because that's what happened with me. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is where you go. All right, 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Dave Bartu is our guest coming up next right here on ESPN 700. About 2 hours away from kickoff at SoFi. San Francisco 49ers taking on the LA Rams. Week 5 of the NFL gets going tonight. You'll hear that game on this radio station after we say goodnight at 6 o'clock. We'll do a little sports court coming up. Then we'll launch into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Some college football with Kyle Bonagura. A rare Saturday in October, where 0 local teams will be playing. BYU is playing on Friday night against West Virginia. Utah and Utah State are on a bye. Our next guest, one of my favorites, because you never know where we're going to go, but you never know where he's at. So I always start with Dave Bartu. Where are you at, and what are you doing?
Dude, I'm trucking down Highway 84 in Eastern Oregon, coming home from elk hunting. Disappointed this year. Had a great time, but need a shower, buddy.
Wait. What was disappointing? You just weren't able to come away with anything exciting? What's disappointing?
Oh, the excitement was there. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I was all over elk, and I called in elk for 2 of my buddies. But this guy had to eat his deer and his elk tag this year. So,
oh, dear.
It was great.
Okay.
It was great. It was great. It was better than a bye.
Have you ever done any elk hunting around our neck of the woods? Apparently the hunting around here is pretty phenomenal.
Man, dude. Utah, there is some pictures I see of elk that come out of that state that are just absolutely jaw-dropping. I would love to run around the Utah mountains for a week and a half, man. Would love it.
Well, come on down. We'll have you live in studio. I got to admit, I've always wanted to actually meet you in person. I have so many questions, Dave, that I've never been able to ask on air that I just want to ask you in person.
Well, we still need to get the bucket list of a Holy War game, man. I really, really want to feel that passion one day.
Yes, indeed. And I'll tell you what, this year might be the year, Dave, because I think both BYU and Utah are very good. I think. What do you think?
Oh, I think they're all both awful darn good, dude. Awful darn good. I look at I just got done pulling market power rankings, cumulative year to date. So it's showing where they're at for the whole year, not just the last 4 weeks, but Utah 21 and BYU 28. And this takes into account only game results and opening spreads. So I'm using the odds makers' numbers. You know, I'm piggybacking off their brilliance and then looking at the game results. Utah, BYU, I mean, you're just keep winning. It's going to be a top 25 collision course holy war coming up, man.
Tell me what makes you as high on the Utes as you are, because, you know, they really take it to West Virginia on the road. But the week before that, Tech rolled into town, and it was a close battle for the first 3 quarters, but their backup quarterback came in and really looked incredibly impressive, and Tech left with a 34-10 win. What makes you as high on the Utes as you are, Dave?
Well, you know, some things never change, right? I mean, we still got good coaching. We still have really good talent. I was as high on them this year as I was last year, and obviously last year was a complete disappointment for everybody, even though the non-fans like myself. But, you know, you still have really good scoring offensively and defensive scoring efficiency. Tech is obviously a very good football team. But, you know, outside of that, they perform really, really good. And so we'll have to wait and see going forward. But I have really high hopes that BYU Utah is a top 25 matchup, buddy.
Same question about the Cougars, who have passed every test that's been thrown their way. But the question, of course, not just with BYU, but so many teams early on in the portion of the schedule is how tough have the tests been. They go to Colorado, they go down early, defense dials in, and they come away with the win. They're going to see West Virginia on Friday. They're favored by 1 million. So what makes you as bullish on BYU as you are?
Yeah, dude, West Virginia sucks. Oh, man, the thing is, though, it's on the road. Never take at Morgantown for granted. That's a long travel. But West Virginia, we got them in our power rankings in the Power Four. We got them 64th out of 68. So not so great there. But with BYU, they actually have a good strength of record as well. I mean, one of the things that we do is we provide information to. We've been doing this for a decade now. Provide information and data to guys that are on the playoff committee. And so strength of record, strength of schedule, all that stuff is really important. And so BYU, man, it was great last year. I expect a little bit more regression than we've seen so far. You know, the Utah bounce back hasn't surprised me. I think I've been a little bit more surprised with BYU's staying power than anything so far.
I know you and I have discussed this before, but I always think it's interesting to bring back on air, as radio is not linear, For our listeners' frame of reference, Dave really digs into coaching staffs, and that's kind of the information that you have always been able to share with us that's been beneficial. Kyle Whittingham, Morgan Scalley, Jason Beck, how do you analyze Utah's coaching staff?
Rock solid. Hardly anything's changed at all, in my opinion. You talk about a lot of coaching continuity. I think that was probably the biggest surprise of 2024 for the Utes from my perspective is you had so much continuity and just boom, the football gods just said, yeah, we've had enough of you being successful. We're going to stop this for a minute. And that reminds me, always rush the field. Never act like you've been there because you never know when it's coming back. So with Utah, I did like the acquisition on paper. Beck as a guy with a high ceiling, good career arc, really liked that hire. Scally still, career-wise, top 10 defensive coordinator in the country. Brilliant defensive mind. So staffing, really good. I mean, how long have I been saying BYU and Utah staffs are amongst the top 25 in the country for now, 4 or 5 years?
6 years on this show now, Dave.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really, really, really good coaching on both sides of the football in both staffs. I mean, there's just not really a whole lot to not like unless you really want to get nitpicky, which, well, that's what fans are supposed to do.
I don't know that I've ever asked you about Bronco Mendenhall, because when you and I started to become familiar with each other on this show, Bronco was no longer in the state. He went to Virginia, went to New Mexico, but he's back, this time in Logan. How do you analyze Bronco Mendenhall?
Above average head coach. He was solid in his time previously in the state. He was about a +1 game above average coach, meaning he got you an extra W beyond the talent and schedule each year, which is well above average. Pretty good staffer, decent recruiter, consistent. Never really had a wow year, but did he have a really bad one either? I mean, I don't recall it right off the top of my head. He seemed to.
No, not really.
The Broncos roller coaster didn't have a lot of highs, but didn't have a lot of lows either. So I think that fits well at Utah State. And I still say he's, top 50th percentile of all head coaches in college football right now. I mean, that kind of makes the state of Utah pretty damn good when it comes down to head coaching acumen.
Yeah, I don't know if you have this info off the top of your head, but, how many, if any other, obviously you go Texas, Bama, plenty of schools down south, but how many states can really boast 3 top-tier college football coaches?
Man, not a whole lot, if any, right? Because you go down the list, and look, I know you said Texas, dude, Steve Sarkisian, he's ranked below all 3 of those guys.
Really?
Really?
Huh.
As a head coach, as an offensive coordinator, oh, yeah, give him a great quarterback, a great offensive line. Dude can dial it up offensively, but head coach, maybe a little bit last year, and he tried really hard to lose to Arizona State. That guy has underperformed the talent every year, everywhere he's been. He has been a constant disappointment in football. There is no way that I would take, if you said, Dave, start a program that is being built from scratch to win, you get Bronco, Sarkisian, Kalani, or Whittingham. The first thing I'm going to say is, I'm not taking Steve.
That's really interesting. You referenced Texas Tech. In the offseason, Cody Campbell, their oil tycoon booster, and their other powerful alums invest economically in a way that not many schools did, if any at all. And the talent just pops, Dave. I mean, they've got a couple of defensive ends. Utah's offensive line is awesome, and their defensive ends caused Utah's offensive line a ton of issues. But tell me about Joey McGuire, longtime legendary Texas high school coach. Is this a matter of simply infusing the roster economically with talent, or can Joey McGuire really coach?
I don't know about the roster overall. And as we know, buying players, if you can scout them good, you can do really well. And we've done a lot of work with advanced athleticism scouting for a lot of programs to miss on fewer guys. But the thing people aren't talking about with Texas Tech, because the billionaire money and all the players get a lot of attention, they upgraded at OC and DC last year. This is a really good staff. A lot of people go, Kitley to Florida Atlantic. boy, they're going to downgrade their offense. No, they got a better offensive coordinator. They got a better defensive coordinator. This is the best staff Joey has ever put together in his time at Texas Tech. It just so happens to coincide with the best roster he's ever had at Texas Tech. It's really the calm after the storm. All the pieces came together in Texas Tech in the last 6 months. But that coaching piece is a lot, big time overlooked by a lot of people.
They're the highest ranked Big 12 team in the AP, and several people, including an earlier guest we had on, have surmised that at this point they should be considered the favorite to win the Big 12. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't disagree. After, I felt it was Utah and Texas Tech. Right now, even the odds makers agree that's the number one team in the Big 12 ahead of Utah. So, I would say they're the odds-on favorite, especially having that win at Utah under the belt. That is clearly the difference maker in that going forward. But they have to be the odds-on favorite to get to the playoffs out of the Big 12 first.
If Utah and BYU played on Saturday, who do you think wins?
Where's it at, buddy?
Let's say neutral field.
Oh, jeez. Now, this is a Ute show, right?
It is. It is. Yeah. We covered BYU too. We covered BYU.
No, sorry, actually, if you asked me that September 1, I'd still go Utah.
Okay.
I just would.
Yeah.
Spread would probably be pick'em 1.5, 2.5. And gosh, that would be one just hell of a football game. I'm looking forward to it happening this year.
All right, let me ask you, Iowa State deserves flowers. They're undefeated. Matt Campbell. A lot of people love themselves some Matt Campbell. Does Dave Bartu love himself some Matt Campbell?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I don't love him. He's been there a long time. He hasn't had really a bad year, but he really hasn't popped anything either. And so, strength of record for Iowa State, I have them number 1 in the country right now. The other half of my team has them number 2. So they have done really well against what they were expected early on. But Matt just, something, blind squirrels find nuts. I get it. And maybe they get over the hump this year. But Matt seems to be just good enough to keep his job and win above expectations, but not good enough to get them a Big 12 title or get him hired somewhere else.
Utah's next opponent is Arizona State, Dave. And, look, there was not a Big 12 preseason media poll. They took that away from us after we were so wrong about everything a year ago. There was not a consensus pick to win the thing this year, but a lot of people, including Vegas, did like Arizona State. A couple of back-to-back good conference wins in Waco against Baylor, at home against TCU. A lot of people love Kenny Dillingham. Do you think he's one of the top coaches in this conference? And what do you make of Arizona State this year?
I ain't calling nobody a top coach in no conference after 16 games, man.
Fair enough.
No, not doing that. Good start. Brought everybody back on defense. Staffing, we'll see. I still maintain that offense is driven through Sam Leavitt, not through the offensive coordinator. So I'm not picking Kenny to be some head coaching savant until Leavitt moves on and Arroyo proves that he can call plays without an NFL quarterback, because he was great with Justin Herbert. He's been great with Sam Leavitt. But when he didn't have those two guys, he's one of the worst in the country. So, to me, jury's still out, but I really love what Kenny has done. You can't deny it's been a great turnaround on what seems to be not great talent. It's not like they brought stuff in like Texas Tech or anything like that. So, culturally, he's done a really good job. Now, do you guys get Arizona State at home, or you travel into the desert?
It's here in Salt Lake.
Okay, fine. I'm taking Utah straight up.
Fair enough. You provide some data to the CFP committee. I feel like their opinion on the Big 12 last year was very loud and clear, and that is, we think you're fine and not great. Any way this conference gets 2 teams in the CFP this year?
Oh, sure. It's all about record, right? I mean, you just gotta you gotta have 11-1, 12-1, etc. But I also think that when you look across, let's say the SEC is full of holes. It's as weak as it's ever been. It's not good on defense anymore, and half the offenses aren't very good. So I think the SEC has taken the lumps the most of anybody in the last 4 years with the portal. So I do think there's an opening and opportunity for the Big 12 each and every year, and the criteria may change going forward. So we'll see. But, yeah, absolutely they can get 2 teams in. But, again, windows of opportunity depending on what happens around them as well.
Let me ask you about the guy in your backyard. You know, we're a Big 12 school now. I've been called a snob for saying over and over that I miss the Pac-12 footprint because I like the markets, including the ability to travel up to Autzen and see Oregon play. My guess is you rank Dan Lanning as a rather highly ranked head coach, fair to say?
Yeah, well, we're starting year 4, so this is, you know, we don't give anybody a full grade until 4 years at their position.
Okay.
But I mean, the guy is what, 39-6?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now it doesn't hurt to have, you know, you think Texas Tech has money. Try having a blank check from Phil Knight, buddy.
Sure.
Whew,
yeah.
That gets you everything. You know, your most important investment is scouts. But, you know, again, really good coaching continuity, really good player continuity. They don't lose starters. You know, they got enough money where they don't lose starters. So the coaching and player continuity, plus now being able to buy their way into the top 5, this is a perennial national contender. And as long as Dan doesn't do stupid things inside his 50 on 4th down, he wins football games.
Yeah, he does. I'd be curious, Dave. Maybe the answer is Sarkisian, but who would you say, based off your data, is the most overrated coaching staff in the country? Like a coaching staff that all of us or fans would just assume is awesome, that your data says maybe isn't. Maybe it's Sark.
Oh, well, Sark as a head coach isn't that good, but his offensive, as the offensive coordinator, Pete Kwiatkowski, defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator, that's the best coordinator trio in the country. So their staffing is great. The weakness is the head coach. Who is overrated in the country? Well, the first one that popped in my mind, like an SEC, head coach is really good, but the rest of the staff I think stinks is LSU. That's the first one that pops into my mind in terms of talent relative to the coaching staff. You know, outside of that, in the Big 12, is there really anybody that is? I don't think coaching staffs in the Big 12 get the credit they deserve. I really don't. BYU, Utah, SMU, in the ACC, you know, I think there's a lot of really good staffs that if they were on top 20, top 15, top 10 talented teams would be lauded as awesome, and they're just forgot about because of the brand they're associated with.
Speaking of which, that leads me to a Kalen DeBoer question, who, again, an old Pac-12 buddy of ours. And, look, it's just, you know, you follow Saban. If you're not perfect, you're going to get roasted. And, you know, they've got an interesting chat. They lost to Vandy a year ago. I don't think they'll do it again. But they're playing better after that opening season loss. Do you think that is a marriage that is going to last, or is it just hard to last in Tuscaloosa?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to last in Tuscaloosa. I think you and I would agree. Kalen DeBoer or anybody, right? Next head coach after Saban's going to get canned because nobody can handle the lack of success. Let me remind everybody, Saban quit because he couldn't be Nick Saban anymore. The new rules, the NIL, the portal, didn't allow him to do what he wanted to do. He quit because he couldn't live up to his own expectations. Good Lord. So how do you expect the next guy to? But Kalen's doing well. I mean, so well, in fact. I mean, if I'm picking a national title game right now, I'm taking Oregon and Alabama in it.
Well, all right, Dave, we'll let you go get that shower after your elk hunt. Always appreciate the time, my friend. Be well, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate being on.
Dave Bartu, College Football Matrix. Figured we get weird on a Thursday. So elk hunt, are you a hunter? I feel like our state is known as one of the better grounds for elk hunting. Maybe Dave needs to make a trip down to Utah.
I am not a trophy hunter, but, you know, family owning land and whatnot, there's responsibilities there. So I've hunted quite a bit in Utah, and I like to, as you know, hunt with a camera more so. So I follow animals around. There are mule deer, elk, Shiras moose, some of the best hunting in the world here.
There
and of course, some trout too.
What do you think Dave Bartu is like in person? Because
Dave's awesome.
if he comes down here for an elk hunt, we need to get him in studio. I have so many questions.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to figure out a way to connect him there, and we can talk him into coming down here because he's a hoot. Really smart guy as you learn, but you just never know where it's going to go. He's a good time. I think we should find a way to make that happen. I'm with you.
Into it. All right, we'll catch a quick break, do a little sports court with our friends from Handy and Handy coming up on the other side. We will get into the 5 o'clock hour of the program. We'll do more college football coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Then don't forget, we are going to say goodnight at 6 o'clock, as we do every day. But tonight, instead of sending you to the best of from the station, we will send you to Thursday Night Football, where the injury-riddled San Francisco 49ers are an 8.5-point favorite, underdog on the road in Los Angeles to take on the Rams at SoFi. So week 5 of the pro football season will begin tonight on the radio station. A rare Saturday in October where 0 local teams are in action. BYU takes on West Virginia. That is at home. I didn't want to interrupt Dave Bartu, but that game is in Provo, 8:30 on ESPN. All right, before we catch a break, we welcome in Ryan from the Dish Pros. If you are left scrambling to find games on apps, and if you are left really not having access to games, then you've waited too long to call the Dish Pros because we're almost halfway done with the college football season. If you're a sports fan and you don't have Dish, you're doing it wrong. You can save money on internet solutions. On this Thursday, dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
And it's that easy. Just if call us up, let us work our magic. We make it easy for you. And we'll save you money. This offer right now is fantastic, and it's only going to last a little bit longer. So call us up. Get the 3 months free of Dish's top package. Guys, this is a huge promotion just by itself if it was just that. But on top of that, we're going to do credits for the next 2 years. We'll price guarantee everything, plus throw in the NFL Red Zone and the multi-sports pack free for the next 6 months. How about Showtime and Paramount Plus free for the next 4 months? It just doesn't get any better. If you call us, you get the best price, and we'll throw in dinner at JCW's. Remember, internet, too, this is something we specialize in, and there are so many different options right now, and especially in northern Utah. Listen, if your internet's slow, it's glitchy, or you're spending more than $70 a month, you just call us. Call and say, hey, this is what I got, and what can you help me with? We'll pull your address. We'll tell you all the internet providers available at your address, what the offers are. And, guys, there's free service, there's gift cards, all sorts of great stuff out there. We have it all, and you get the best price when you call us. Why don't you save some money? Call 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Pros. A little sports court coming up on the other side before we get into the 5 o'clock hour of the drive on a Thursday afternoon. And it's good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700. It is Sports Court time. We do it every Thursday, right about now, with our good friends Garrett and Preston Handy from the law firm of Handy and Handy. Gentlemen, happy Thursday. How we doing?
Hey, Spence. How you doing?
All good here. Always appreciate the time, of course, on this beautiful Thursday. So we'll start out with the latest with the lawsuit brought by former University of Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines and several others against the NCAA. We talked about this when it was filed, and it's been partially thrown out. So Title IX claims can proceed. What's the latest here?
Yeah, Spence, we have talked about this as well as a bunch of other cases involving trans athletes and, the legalities of them. This one kind of grows out, if you remember, we talked about a University of Pennsylvania swimmer named Leah Thomas. Leah was a very average swimmer on the men's team, University of Pennsylvania, and in 2022 jumped over and started to compete as a trans woman on the University of Pennsylvania team, and she was allowed to. And as a result of it, she won several NCAA titles and broke a lot of records, and that caused a lot of disruption. If you saw Leah standing on the podium with the other swimmers, she was, as the song goes, 6'4" and full of muscles, and looked kind of out of place there. But one of the people on the stand there was one Riley Gaines, and she was University of Kentucky, and she was denied. She had to share a locker room with Leah Thomas, and she didn't get to win or place as high as she should have. So on the Leah Thomas thing, interesting that University of Pennsylvania, the Department of Education brought a lawsuit against University of Pennsylvania alleging Title IX allegations. That case has been settled recently. We didn't talk about it. And some really important things came out of that. Penn settled it and said that they agreed that trans women could not compete in female athletics. Also, they restored all of the records to the swimmers that should have gotten them, and also issued apologies to female athletes. Well, on the heels of this, Riley Gaines, who was kind of the figurehead, the activist and the voice of all of this, filed a lawsuit along with about 20 other swimmers, female athletes, against the NCAA, claiming Title IX violations. Well, they also sued Georgia Tech, where the actual championships were held. Because it was held there, they said they were violating Title IX. And as you mentioned, recently the court granted a bunch of motions to dismiss, so a lot of claims of this have been kicked out. But what does remain is the Title IX claims against the NCAA. The judge looked at it and said, you know what, there are reasonable issues here to be decided that potentially the NCAA was receiving federal funding. We know that Title IX thing is anyone receiving federal funding has to can't discriminate based on gender. Another thing that happened in this whole world was the Trump executive order, which prohibited trans female athletes participating in female sports. So a lot of things have happened to kind of bring this around. And so now this enters the kind of more of the discovery phase where, it's looked at that maybe emails and certain documents will be gained. There's talk about settlement, but the lawyer for Riley Gaines came out and said, things are always changing, this executive order. What if down the road this executive order is not in place? And kind of said the only way that we think this the settlement could really happen is if it was accompanied by a court decree, which kind of set the law and the rule for long term, so they could have predictability on this. So, it's still going, and I think the important claims are still going. We'll see what happens.
Garrett, if you'd like to follow up Preston bringing in the song Down Under from Men at Work to a transgender swimming lawsuit, the floor is yours, sir.
I'm going to just leave it there.
Okay, fair enough.
I can't do better than that.
Preston, that was some radio magic, my friend. Well done.
I'm glad you recognized that.
I was trying to hide my laughter so folks weren't hearing that on air, but it was it caught me. That was very, very good. All right, so we'll move over to a new NIL bill introduced by some senators. Gentlemen, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, this is a follow-up to another bill that we talked about a few weeks ago, and Congress loves to they spend more time, I think, putting together these acronyms than getting maybe legislation passed. But the first one that we talked about was called the SCORE Act, and the one that we're going to talk about just real quickly today is called the SAFE Act. But the SCORE Act, just to recap really quickly, it said it would give some antitrust protections to the NCAA and to some conferences. that could be a really big thing. I mean, we have talked so much on Sports Court about antitrust lawsuits against the NCAA, universities, conferences, and all of that. So that would provide potentially some stability. The other big thing that the SCORE Act would do is it would say college athletes are not employees, and then also, standardizing some NIL compensation rules and things like that. The big difference with this new one, and let me go back to some of the criticism on the SCORE Act, and part of the reason it has looked like it was not going to have the votes. One of the criticisms is that it would give too much power to the SEC and the Big Ten, and that would potentially push out some smaller schools out of Division I. And so, that not gaining a lot of ground, getting the votes, and so along comes the SAFE Act. So this is sort of a competing bill that's been put forward, and I think the big difference would be that it doesn't really address this issue of employees, but one of the things it would do, it would make an amendment to the Sports Broadcasting Act, and what that would allow schools to do, it would allow schools and conferences to potentially pool their media rights money. And so this could be a way, again, to combat this issue of the SEC and the Big Ten having too much power and too much money, and to sort of even the playing field a little bit among schools and conferences, because this is, a game of the haves and have-nots at this point. I'll note that Texas Tech billionaire oilman Cody Campbell, we're familiar with his money. Saw that on the field a few weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's in support of this, right? Let's not let the SEC and the Big Ten get away with taking too much.
All right, Preston, you're up, bud.
Yeah, I think it's just looking for some more predictability and something that everyone can get behind. The senator said those closest to college sports, including student athletes and leaders of America's colleges, have consistently called on Congress to take action and address the threats facing college athletics. One thing I did read, and Garrett maybe can, I saw something that said that someone could, this act, you could enter the draft, and if you weren't happy with where you got drafted and you weren't going to make enough money, you could jump back in to college and continue getting your NIL stuff. That was one of the things that looked like to try and protect the athletes anyway. But I think it's looking to level the playing field, and I think the Texas Tech billionaire, he wouldn't mind the field being leveled because then he maybe wouldn't have to spend so much money.
Yep. Yeah, good point. All right, let's move over to the NFL. Sauce Gardner, he's being awarded a lot of money, attorney's fees and costs for defending a lawsuit brought by a Bills fan. What's going on here?
Yeah, so, Sauce Gardner of your team, the Jets, didn't know about this one. I don't think we ever talked about it, but this grows out of a situation, thank goodness for social media and the ability to, not only do athletes make a lot of money, monetizing their name, image, and likeness, but sometimes it allows fans to interact with athletes. And this one grows out of a situation where a Bills fan, on Twitter was bantering with Sauce Gardner, and she put forth a claim that said he talked about putting a golf simulator in his house, and she said, yeah, you need a simulator to teach you how not to commit pass interference or defensive holding. Well, that got our guy Sauce attention because what is he known as one of the best corners in the NFL, and that goes right at the heart of his pride. So he made a comment back to her. Here you are, athletes being able to communicate back and forth with fans, someone he doesn't even know. It's a Bills fan. And he said, I'm sure your husband wouldn't like it if I told him you DM'd me your OF link would be. Well, apparently OF, I didn't know, is called OnlyFans. It's a social media thing that maybe carries some negative connotations, and she saw it as that. She saw that it had negative connotations, and she came back and said, I don't have an OF account. And Barstool Sports even jumped on it and said to her, if you're a married woman with an OnlyFans account, DMing Sauce Gardner, you'd be wise not to troll him about his coverage skill. Well, she claimed this was defamation, and we've talked about defamation before. It has to be a statement that is false, that is stated for fact, and it causes damages. Well, she claimed that she had emotional distress and all kinds of things like that, so she sued Sauce Gardner and Barstool Sports for defamation. Well, the court looked at this, and over time, and they came in and they dismissed it. They said, well, wait a minute. If we're every time there's banter going back and forth, that things that aren't said for the truth, someone's able to allege defamation where she was going back, was back and forth going at him. They pointed to what's called the SLAPP Act in New Jersey. They said that would open the floodgates and be a big snowball. So the court didn't see that as a defamatory statement that was stated for fact. And so add insult to injury, it got dismissed. Her lawsuit's not going. And guess what? The court jumped in and said, yeah, you owe him attorney's fees at the tune of about $52,000. So that's pretty brutal.
Garrett, if you'd like to follow up Preston learning what OnlyFans is in real time on Sports Court today, please, sir, the floor is yours. This is a phenomenal Sports Court hit, I got to say.
OF, I don't know what this is. But it is kind of interesting that now we have courts weighing in on whether or not trolling, if you're trolling somebody, a professional athlete or a celebrity online, whether or not that's defamation.
All right, moving over to a jock tax in the state of Pennsylvania. I did not know about this. I guess the city of Pittsburgh, more specifically, violates the state constitution. What's going on here?
I didn't know about this either. Kind of interesting, though. So if you go play sports or you're a celebrity, you perform in Pittsburgh, and you're from out of state, you get charged a 3% tax on income earned while visiting and performing in a publicly funded stadium. And so kind of interesting, and this has created about $2.5 million in revenue for Pittsburgh just this year. But it was challenged by some former pro athletes from various different sports and struck down by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And they basically said, hey, this discriminates against non-residents, because so a non-resident comes in and pays 3%. If you're a resident, you only pay 1%. And so, kind of interesting, this got struck down. I mean, of course, the argument for a tax like this is that, when a city or puts on an event, I mean, there's a huge cost, right? A huge cost to taxpayers, whether that's for police or traffic control or, all kinds, and just funding and building stadiums. And so, Pittsburgh's not going to get away with it. I think they can still do their tax, but they're going to have to apply it equally among residents and non-residents.
What do you got, Preston?
It's fascinating. How do you manage this if you're the accountant for one of these athletes? Do they have to pay taxes for not only where their team is, but where they go in to play at visiting venues? Is that how I read that? That's kind of crazy. But like Garrett mentioned, they earn a lot of money on it.
All right, final one for today, a local update on the Utah Mammoth. They've been asked to stop selling merchandise by this equipment manufacturer. Give us the update here.
Yeah, so Spence, this grows out of, and this was shocking, when the Utah Hockey Club came out and said, hey, we're going to be the Utah Mammoth. Well, later on, come to find out there is a bag manufacturer, sports, not apparel, but sports bags, that type of equipment bags, called Mammoth Hockey. And they apparently went to Utah Mammoth. I want to get these right. And there was some talk behind the scenes, but then they said, hey, we need you to not use that name because it's going to create confusion in the marketplace. Well, Utah Hockey was proactive on this, and what they did is they went and filed rather than getting sued, they filed a lawsuit, went in for declaratory judgment with the court, and named Mammoth Hockey, the bag manufacturer, basically saying you don't have a trademark. Well, what's interesting, Mammoth Hockey's been in place for 11 years, but they did not go get a trademark. So they've been operating with what's called a common law trademark, and there is law supporting that you can have a common law trademark. And Garrett and I even talked about this after the show. I think they have a pretty decent valid claim. I mean, there is, it's called Mammoth Hockey, and then the Utah Mammoth Hockey Club, so they're fighting over this now. The claims are basically they're saying, hey, we've been selling in 47 states. This is going to create confusion among customers, and it's potential damage to us. And Utah Mammoth, the hockey club, has come in and said, well, wait a minute, you never trademarked this, and you even were kind of okay with us doing this. So what's wrong with it now? So they've requested an injunction. And what they're saying is, hey, for now, while we're fighting this in court, you're not allowed to sell stuff right now and make money on this. And there's a pretty high standard on getting a preliminary injunction. You have to show the party must show that they're subject to irreparable harm, and that's the showing they're going to have to show here. I'm interested to see how this comes down. If it goes in favor of Mammoth hockey, I think there'll be some negotiations behind the scenes so Utah Mammoth can keep their name, because that would be a big shot if they had to all the promotion they've done and losing that right now.
Garrett, final word is yours, buddy.
Well, we're all Mammoth hockey fans here for sure, but there's a big part of me that is rooting for the underdog here. I mean, this bad company. I mean, they were there first, so I'd like to see this get worked out.
All right, gentlemen, before I set you loose on this Thursday, for any of our listeners who have legal questions, how can they get a hold of you over at Handy and Handy?
Well, give us a call. Love to talk to any listeners out there with their legal questions, especially in the area of personal injury, which is what we do. You can reach us at 801-264-6677 or go to our website at handylawutah.com.
All right, guys, thanks so much for the time on this Thursday afternoon. Have a great weekend, and even though it is a bye week, we will still say go Utes.
Go Utes. Thanks, Spence.
All right, Garrett and Preston Handy from the law firm of Handy and Handy. For any legal questions, give them a call. Great guys, very honest. They'll take care of you. Appreciate their time. Another great guy who's very honest is Ryan from the Dish Pros. And if you don't have Dish and you're a sports fan, I can just promise you you're doing it wrong. And if you're one of the people that gets their internet bill every month and you turn to your wife and say, I feel like we're paying too much for this, well, guess what? You are. So call the Dish Pros and save money right away at 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Spence, thanks so much. And yeah, it's just so easy. And we do help so many people, but I know there's just a lot more people out there that listen every day and they're like, well, I'll call. Listen, don't put it off. It's not a hard thing to do. You just call 424-DISH and ask. Say, hey, okay, I've got this TV service. I'm paying this. What can you do? You'll be surprised, especially with the offers right now where you get 3 months free of Dish's top package. You get the DVR. It just is killing it. I truly love the updates they've done as of late, where it just has so many neat things that make your TV viewing experience just simplified, as it integrates streaming services and traditional TV kind of into one particular platform. And so it's pretty seamless, but really, the DVR is the coolest thing out there, and Dish has the coolest DVR out there, especially because it auto-records the local channels. This is awesome. Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday Night Football. Guys, all of that's just going to be on your DVR for your enjoyment. If you don't watch it, it just drops off. But it's just a neat little feature to have. Call us up, get 3 months free. Dish's top package. It's like 400-plus channels. You also get the NFL Red Zone multi-sports pack free for 6 months. And we'll throw in dinner at JCW's. But the one thing you don't want to forget is you definitely ask us about internet. We can plug your address into our system. I've got 7 or 8 different internet providers depending on the area. We'll have one, and if it's cheaper, it's cheaper, and it's not hard to make the switch. Even if you have fiber, there's a good possibility that you can just pay your bill to a different company, use the same fiber, and spend $20-30 a month less. Guys, that's just real money in your pocket. But you got to call 424-DISH. Call us today. Take advantage of the deals. Get the best price guarantee from us. It's 801-424-DISH. That's 424-3474.
All right, there he is, Ryan from the Dish Professionals. 3 hours in the books, 1 hour to go. Final hour of the program, 5 o'clock hour on a Thursday before we turn it over to Thursday Night Football between the Rams and the 49ers. Comes your way. Coming up after a quick break right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get it. Drive at 5 time Thursday afternoon style. 7 minutes past the hour, 5 o'clock. It has been one of those Chamber of Commerce Utah fall days outside today. It's about 80 degrees and clear and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah on this October Thursday afternoon. We are in for some inclement weather coming up this weekend with some snow in the mountains. Going to be chilly for that RSL Colorado game. Maybe some rain in the forecast as well, but we'll take it for today. Tomorrow's supposed to be pretty nice. Maybe some rain in the afternoon. Happy Thursday to you, and as it is every single day, thank you for making us a part of your Thursday afternoon. We got Thursday Night Football on the radio station, and just over from 1 hour from right now, it is the Rams and the Niners at SoFi. The Niners are injury-plagued, as they've been over the past couple of years. No Brock Purdy, no George Kittle, no Juwan Jennings, no Brandon Ayuk. Even Ricky Pearsall is sitting tonight. So the Rams are a healthy favorite at home. They're an 8.5-point favorite at SoFi in Los Angeles. So don't forget that game comes your way when we say goodnight. At about 6 o'clock, we're going to do some college football coming up with Kyle Bonagura, one of our favorites from ESPN. Talk BYU, West Virginia. It's an odd Saturday in October as 0 local teams will be playing football on Saturday. Utah State on a bye, trying to get Bryson Barnes back and healthy. University of Utah on a bye. Several players banged up, trying to get healthy prior to Arizona State when they roll into town 2 Saturdays from now for a late kick at Rice-Eccles. BYU a healthy favorite against the West Virginia team. The Utah curb stomped last week in Morgantown. BYU an 18.5-point favorite in Provo. So there you go. College football. We'll do some college football with Bonagura coming up in a bit. It is a massive day in the world of Major League Baseball. 3 elimination games. The Tigers went into Cleveland and took care of the Guardians. 6-3, your final score there earlier. We are now at the top of the 7th in Wrigley, where the Cubbies have a 2-0 lead over the Padres. And we are about 50 minutes from first pitch in the Bronx, where the Yankees and the Red Sox will do battle in an elimination game after the Yankees were able to survive last night using a Jazz Chisholm game-winning run, and now we're deadlocked at 1 game apiece. So Major League Baseball wild card elimination day across the landscape of pro baseball. All right, before we catch a break, new partner on the show, excited about this, America First Credit Union. I've made the switch to America First Credit Union. And if you're looking for a new bank, and certainly if you're looking for a bank, maybe you have a teenager, you want to teach some budgeting skills, or a college student that you need to open a safe bank account for, America First Credit Union is the way to go. They're offering a bunch of incentives right now with very low interest rates. And, of course, they're the official credit union of the University of Utah. A couple of really cool things if you want to check out America First Credit Union, if you're a Utah fan. First of all, just support the Utes with the official Utah Athletics Visa debit card, which is free with America First checking options. It's the official credit union of Utah Athletics. They offer members some awesome deals with the Visa debit card. It comes along with the perks that come with it, namely exclusive card holder benefits with special ticketing offers. If you have tried to get tickets on the secondary market for Utah football games, you know it's a real big pain. Well, you get, as an America First member, you get exclusive ticket options and exclusive prices to Utah sporting events on Ticketmaster.com. My favorite thing might be the early game day entry. Got a couple of buddies that do this with their America First Credit Union, the official Visa debit card with America First Credit Union. So what you do is you beat the crowd and you get into Rice-Eccles Stadium up to 2 hours prior to kickoff, which you know is a big deal. If you're trying to get in close to kickoff, you're going to wait in lines. It's going to be a pain. It's 30 minutes sooner than the general public. All you have to do is show a valid ticket and your America First Visa debit card to the security officers. That's at Gate L in the southeast corner of the stadium. So Gate L, southeast corner. Get in super early. Do not wait in lines. It'll give you a chance to get concessions, get in your seats prior to kick, and then just beat the crowd. And again, great ticketing offers as well that you get that other people don't as an America First member. Official credit union of U of U Athletics, our good friend at America First Credit Union. Definitely make the switch. Really good people trying to help you out. We will catch a break and do more college football coming up on the other side with Kyle Bonagura from ESPN. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. Both of Iowa State cornerbacks are now officially out for the year. Jontez Williams, Jeremiah Cooper. It was announced that both of them are going to be out for the entire season. Williams damaged ACL. Cooper tore his ACL. Man, that's tough. 55 starts between the two of them, so rough news for one of the Big 12 contending teams. Odd Saturday with no local college football games, but a fun slate, national college football. Are you old enough to remember when Miami, Florida State was like the biggest college football game of the year? It may have been a little before your time.
I was going to say, not really. I remember like those teams being kind of good, tail end, but no, I was a little behind the like late 90s Miami Hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
They were also like the coolest programs.
Yeah.
A lot of swag, like Uncle Luther from Miami, Charlie Ward, our guy, Florida State Heisman Trophy winner. Like when these two teams used to meet when I was like in high school, and it didn't really matter where you lived, I should say. I think most people either had like a Florida State or like a Miami starter jacket back in the day. So they played coming up on Saturday. Certainly doesn't have the same type of juice that they used to. What are you going to do for the bye week? Are you going to take a little time off? I think Scott's traveling. I'm sure Bill's doing something.
A little bit. As we've talked about a bit, there's some storm blowing in, so I'm going to be up in the mountains preparing for winter on the home front.
Okay.
With the family. Other than that, though, I mean, I'll tune in to BYU West Virginia on Friday, and then as you mentioned, it's a super quiet weekend around here Saturday and Sunday. So I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna reset. I'm gonna be mostly disconnected for the weekend.
Gotta love it. But of course, we have one more show before the weekend. So Thursday Night Football comes your way coming up on the other side. The injury ravaged San Francisco 49ers in Los Angeles at SoFi to take on the Rams. And then tomorrow night, BYU West Virginia. So, Porter, before we get out of here, to make some space for the first game of the Week 5 pro football slate, what are we doing on a Friday show?
Yeah, you mentioned the injury-ravaged 49ers. I sent you a link earlier, a few hours ago. NFLPA-sponsored study that said that the artificial turf is just more dangerous for players. Soft tissue injuries, non-contact injuries, the rates that they happen are verifiably larger on artificial turf than they are on grass turf. That's a study that has now been repeated by separate third-party entities. I've seen 3 or 4 of them. So I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah.
Just a thought. But yeah, on a Friday, Bill Bush, Coach Bush, is going to stop by. We'll have him throughout the season as we continue to go throughout the football year. Lloyd Sam will stop by. So we'll talk some MLS. We'll talk some U.S. men's national team. Of course, Lloyd ahead of RSL in Colorado on Apple TV. Open for one, Robert Johnson, the former Ute and NFL safety, and we'll go from there. So a bunch of college football, a little bit of soccer, and maybe some golf on a Friday too.
Any update on getting the Bill Bush from Access Hollywood or Extra? Any update there?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. That's fine.
And you know what? I don't want a hot mic situation.
Yeah, fair enough.
Again.
Fair enough.
So
yeah, let's not even go there.
Maybe I'll just leave that one be.
Yeah, we'll utilize the talents of the football coach, Bill Bush, and we'll let the former American radio host from Extra and Access Hollywood kind of do his thing. Good night. Thursday Night Football coming up on the other side. Special thank you. Kyle Bonagura, Pablo Mastroetti, Lindsey Rhodes, and Dave Bartu. Little sports court action. If you missed any of it, go to our website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app. Take us on the go. You can listen to us wherever you're at. That's how I listen to the station. That ESPN app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store for free. And then to support what we do in the afternoons for 4 hours, if you have some time and you like our show and you're looking to help, we'd appreciate some support on our podcast page wherever you get your shows, we're there. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. It really does help. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy some Thursday Night Football coming up on the other side. We'll talk to you on a Friday edition of The Drive. And as always, you can find that right here on ESPN 700.